Hello.
Intro for a minute though. I am so here for it. I'm here for it. Here for everything given. And then can we talk about your hair wrap? I am so here for it, honey. I'm here for the red lipstick. I'm here for the glass. I'm here for the earrings. Baby, I'm here for everything that is given because it's given
You
exactly what
know,
it's supposed to give. Yes. Yes. It's given
man,
exactly what it's supposed to give, sis. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Let me just take a few
you
seconds.
are beautiful as well. Let's cheers to the episode.
Yes.
All
Come
right.
on
Okay.
now.
So welcome. Once again, I'm Sdot Fit Fashion. You can follow me at on my Instagram, TikTok. Um,
Oh, I can't hear you, sis. No, I can't hear you. Oh, I can't hear. This agent, the sound just went out. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. While my sis gets back up, we're gonna wait for her to come back up. So we were gonna do a tutorial. Maybe y'all could put it in the comments. We were gonna do a cooking tutorial, but we may like separate it and do it on a different night. We're thinking of maybe doing like a meal prep type scenario, but it's totally open to y'all. We can do, whatever is good for everybody. Can we hear you now, sis? Yes, yeah, okay, you understand. Okay, we here. So I was just telling the people, we were gonna do because somebody was asking about like the cooking and the tutorial. So I told them to just kind of drop in the comments what they want. I know we talked about possibly doing like a meal prep type situation,
Look,
maybe like later in the week, but just drop in the comments.
I'm getting ready to lose some weight, so y'all gonna go on this journey with me, okay? So I will keep y'all posted on because I'm gonna be doing some things coming up this couple of weeks. It's at the beginning of the year. I usually like to do a cleanse or just a reset, all my goals and things I want to do for the year. So yeah, so I'm definitely gonna take everyone on this journey with me on my platform as well.
I'm here
So,
for it. I'm here for it. Here
okay.
for it. So should we get into this thing? I got my
Wait.
wine too because I know we finna get into some stuff, that's deep. It's always deep, but as always, we're gonna leave our feelings at the door. We're gonna be real fact based today. And we're just gonna put it out there.
Yes. So, okay, let's go. All right. So, one of the things we want to discuss was compromise in marriage. Now, there's so many different ways that you can compromise in your marriage, but I think the first thing that we kind of need to address is what compromise looks like in your relationship may not look like what it looks like in other people's relationship. So, I think it's really important for you to kind of identify what you feel that your relationship should be compromising with yourself, compromising with family, with in-laws, your kids, your career. So we're just gonna get into it. How do you feel about compromise? Is it a word that you feel like is a cuss word? Do you feel that way? Never.
See, and it's so hard because I'm really not even gonna lie. I'm gonna take these AirPods in. I'm really not even gonna lie. I used to because I used to be like kind of like it's gonna be what I said, and we're gonna do what I said, and it's gonna be my way, and that is it. And if you can't, you could jump off this bandwagon. But and I talked about my story a little bit before because I grew up like kind of saying that, like my mom was real, like okay, this is how it's gonna be. And if you can't get with the program, like, you can't excuse yourself. But, after growth and and I'm not gonna lie, I honestly went into my marriage that way too. Like, I
Mhm.
got married pretty young. I was like 21. And so I went kind of into marriage that way,
Right.
like, if you're not gonna, do what I say. And of course, it caused a lot of problems because my husband is like an alpha male and he has a strong personality, strong convictions, all that good stuff. So it caused a lot of problems and it caused us to bump heads a whole lot because I was just not willing to, like flex on anything. Yeah, not on anything. And so I think I figured out, and thankfully I figured it out like quickly enough that marriage is about and to me that's one of the core, that's one of the foundational things of a marriage. And not just marriage, any relationship, even friendships, relationships with family, all that good stuff. It's about compromise and about two people that are like not willing to give up on each other. And so with that, you're going to have to compromise on some things, because of course we have to remember that marriage is really like two people from two totally different backgrounds, coming together. And I know we're going to talk about a little later about in-laws. You got two totally different families, people that have two totally different values. And I
Right.
was so petty with it. It will literally come down to sometimes the way you make up the bed. Like, no, that's not how you make up a bed. Like, I don't know. Like, who raised
If
you?
that's not my husband,
A
I
bed
don't know what. That's
like,
my
yes,
husband
you
right
don't
there.
know. You don't roll the comforter over. You bring it all the way to the top, and then you put the pillows on. And so it was a whole. And I think sometimes we can get narrow minded
Right.
and get like in this box and thinking that the way we do things or the way that our family does things is the only way to do things, or that the way we do things is the best way to do things. And so I think even for our own growth, we have to be open to recognizing that it's other ways to do things, that that we have to be open to learn and have our heart open enough to accept things that
A
come our
difference
way.
of opinion, okay? A difference
Right,
of opinion.
because you might miss a lot of things. You could have been, yes, you and your family may have done things. And I know we're talking about like making a bed, but of course that's just a general
But
concept. Of course
those
you want to
little
analogy.
things really do add up. Those
They
little things come,
do.
like the way you squeeze the toothpaste, okay? The way you park the car. Like my husband is very particular the way he parks the car in the garage and he backs it up. Like it's a whole thing. And I just watch him like, are you
It
serious?
ain't
But
that
yes,
serious. It's not
or
that serious.
like, let me just the other day, he was like, well, I'm gonna transfer this money. If you could just give me this, that, or the other. And I was like, well, just put it here, and then I'll do what I need to do. And like these are these small things that kind of add up that could get on
Mhm.
your nerves. So like it's small, but it can get so big. And when people are like, oh, we just grew apart. I'm like, how did that transpire when you just grew
Yeah.
apart? Did you just stop paying attention to one another? Or did you stop compromising? Did you stop making room for that person to grow and to develop and things like that? I always feel like, there's a difference between compromise, sacrifice, and obedience. And
True.
so
Yes.
on one of the episodes with Black Men Unfiltered, I was speaking about when I first got married. I was in my 20s as well. And honestly, 20s generally are for exploration. Your brain is not even developed until you're 25. Okay. So, like, you're trying to still figure yourself out. You are still evolving, you're still changing. And so we went through our premarital counseling and stuff like that. And, you know, I had like a breakdown because we had decided we had did it. So meaning I agreed as well that we were going to close my account and combine our finances, before, marriage and stuff, or were we already married? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. It hurt nonetheless. Like I
Because
cried.
that's hard, but that's difficult. That's difficult.
Yes, because you don't want to feel like you're compromising your independency sometimes. Like if
Yeah.
you work hard to be in a certain space, it feels sometimes that, like, oh my gosh, what it taught me, I will say this, what it taught me overall was that I had to be obedient to myself, to the Father, the God I serve,
Mhm.
and to my marriage. Not even to him, right? Like it didn't, he was the last person that I'm being obedient to or whatever. But, I have this thing about myself that I don't just answer to my husband. There's a person I'm answering to me first and
Yeah.
how I feel about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to transfer. But it taught me trust. Overall, it
Mhm.
taught me trust that I could trust him and that he wasn't going to harm, he wasn't going to take advantage of me. It was a lesson that happened over years. Like I still felt the ways, I still felt a little ways about it, but I trucked on through and it really did benefit our marriage overall. So just wanted to share that for the women who are successful and you get to the point where still protect yourself. Don't
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot to protect in the beginning, so that's why, but if you are well established, I definitely, make sure that you're protected and you have things in order, especially if you have kids,
Mm-hmm.
previous marriages and things like that. Make sure your paperwork, your documentation, and that you speak about that prior to getting married, and go to premarital counseling if you can. So,
Yes, yes. And it's kind of based on your situation too, because I think that's the ideal way to kind of do things. Some of us are a little bit more, so that was kind of part of my journey too. And honestly, I still got my own checking account. But we did compromise. So that was a situation where we had to compromise because
to a
I was
different
very
perspective.
rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, of course, I grew up that way. Like, no, you don't be letting no man know everything you got going on.
Hmm.
And I just had kind of that mentality. And so I went into marriage thinking like, oh no, I'm gonna keep like my bank account, like everything. You don't need to know how much I make. You don't need to know how much you have. Like you don't have to know any of that. We just gonna go half on these bills, and pay these bills. Like, and that's about it. You don't need to know anything I got going on, and I'm not gonna be asking you what you got going on. But there was a selfish part of me that wanted to
Hmm.
know like what he was making and what he was doing, but of course I didn't want to do the same for myself. So
Right.
like you said, through counseling, through all that good stuff, we were able to compromise and decide because it was honestly, it was just too much for me.
Yes.
I had to gradually go into, being able to have a joint account with somebody. And
Right.
so we agreed that we would still have our separate accounts where like our payroll check goes to,
Hmm.
but that we would have the joint account where we would pay the bills from. And so that was the compromise that we had to do because it took me some time, like, to get comfortable with, I just wasn't comfortable, like, right off the bat going into a joint account with somebody and both of our payroll checks are coming in there. And then again, I had to grow at the same time, but I have to
I
remember.
mean, you can still be growing now because that's still, it sounds like it may still be. I mean,
I mean,
what I had to
I
learn,
was
like,
21.
if you get a bonus check,
Yes,
shoot.
I've come a long way because at that time when I was 21, yeah, it was no way. Like, no, we're not having joint checking accounts. Like, because I'm gonna need to know, like, why you spending that? Like, I'm gonna be called. Like, I was literally like, person gonna be calling you, like, hey. And the other thing is too. Again, with marriage, is two totally different backgrounds. So we had two very different perspectives on saving,
Right.
on expenses and what you should spend on. We had two totally different perspectives on having, money for a rainy day and what that money
Right.
looks like, versus if you should have $500, you should have $5,000. It was two totally different perspectives, like on everything.
Right.
So it was just like I said, we ended up ultimately compromising, and even to this day, we still have that setup where our payroll checks come into our separate bank accounts, but we do have the joint bank account where we pay bills from and where we save jointly. So, and that's what works for us. Ideally, like you said, your situation, it works for you to close your bank,
Yeah,
but you got to have.
everything is combined. Like, just recently, I'm getting ready to start like a business and stuff, and so, I think I still had to mature with handling money as well. So that's like a whole process because, generally, if you're both spenders, you ain't gonna have no money. Or there's the saver and there's the spender. There's the, and I tend to hoard money. Okay, like I like to see it add up, but I do
Mhm.
like to, when I get into a space of spending, I will spend. So, like, and I think my husband, like, he has things that he likes that he will pay top dollar for, and that's just, what he will do. Like, he'll just, this is this. But we never like feel like, we can't do certain things. I'm a bit more ambitious. So, like, I do like to do things, but I always have to check and make sure that, hey, it's within budgets and means and all that. And that's like
Mhm.
the compromise piece, because you want to be able, you don't, because sometimes with money it could feel like a controlling
True.
situation, right? It can make you feel like, oh, I can't. When we were getting ready to buy our home, we were very strict and stringent, like, about like everything. We had to count everything. So we wanted to make sure that we, were financially savvy going through that process. So, because buying a home is like a whole nother level that, you're stepping into, and a bigger responsibility. So definitely want to make sure that, you are compromising in a safe way, not in a way, because I think some people feel like compromising is like you telling somebody, like you compromise to the point where you feel that your own personal growth is becoming stagnant, or you're not being able to move, you're not being able to learn. And I'm like, that is just not okay. So, like,
Yeah.
you don't want to lose your sense of self,
Mhm.
when you're going through certain things. So, how do you feel about kids and in-laws? Let's talk about in-laws. Let's talk about
Yes,
in-laws.
because we kind of, and that I think that's a good segue because we already talked about how it's two different families. Y'all making up
Yes.
the bed different. Y'all over there, y'all was over there doing a whole bunch of different stuff. And so I think that's a good transition because that plays a huge part into marriage and people's upbringing, kind of all of those sorts of things. Um, in terms of in-laws, and it can be so tricky because I've heard so many stories about in-laws and about mother-in-laws and about,
Mhm.
thankfully I was blessed with a fantastic mother-in-law, and RIP, we lost her like 2 years ago. Fantastic. Was very, she was so, nice. Generally, she was just a nice person, just a giver.
Mhm.
Um, I think the dynamic that came in for us, which this is somewhat of a wrinkle, when there is a previous spouse and there's like a previous relationship, like an ex-wife. So that presents an entirely new challenge, like to in-laws, because of course, and especially if it was like a long-term relationship.
Yes.
So my husband had previously been married, and him and his ex-wife were like high school sweethearts. So they
Mm.
were together for I think maybe like 8 to 10 years or something like that. So
Mhm.
they essentially like kind of grew up together, and like she grew up. They all went to the same high school. She went to the same high school with his sister, like all that good stuff. So initially it was somewhat difficult. And my mother-in-law, I think probably was the only one that didn't, kind of, she accepted me, like kind of right off the bat. And she was still cool with, the ex-wife. That wasn't a problem. But for some of the other family members, some of the other in-laws, I think it was somewhat difficult to accept. And my younger self didn't understand that. My younger self
Right.
just used to go off. Now that I've matured and after some growth, I've come to understand that they didn't need to cut off, and even to this day, they don't need to cut off the ex spouse or the ex wife. They had a relationship with that person. They've known that person for 10 years plus, so they don't have to cut the person off. Because I'll be honest, when my husband first got married, I was like, oh no, baby, he got a whole new wife. Y'all don't need to be talking to her. Y'all don't need to, well, and this one I still stand firm on. Y'all don't need to invite her to family gatherings. And so I think it's just finding that balance. Because to me, it was so disrespectful to me if we're having a family gathering for them to invite her to the gathering. And I know people have different viewpoints on that, but that was something like that I stood firm on, and so that like stopped
I mean,
it.
because it's going to take time for you to integrate into everything. And I
True,
think
true.
not if you have this like elephant in the room, which is the ex-wife like hanging over, like how do they
Yeah,
make space for you coming
yeah,
in?
exactly. Yeah. And so, like I said, they didn't. So that was one thing that I stood firm on with my own boundaries. I was willing to compromise, but that was a boundary that I had because I just felt like it's not, to me, it just wasn't appropriate. For
Mhm.
her to be there, like he has a new wife, he's moved on, it just wasn't appropriate. But other things, and of course, and then when there are kids involved, of course, there's going to be, basketball games, activity for the kids, that kind of stuff that you all will be in the same space. And I'll be honest, this is a very transparent one. I used to get like upset sometimes, like when I
Mhm.
would see like his sister, like interacting, with his ex-wife, and it's like, what's that about? But like I said, in my growth, I had to recognize and realize, okay, they had a relationship, long before I was ever around. And so just because, my husband has moved on, I shouldn't be holding them to that level of, okay, you need to cut this person off just
Right.
because he moved on. And so it took a lot of growth there. It took a lot of almost healing. Again, a lot of that too has to do with my background, just because I come from, a background of like being defensive and don't trust nobody. And I've
Hmm.
shared when I've shared on Black Men Unfiltered platform before. It wasn't that I've always been a nice person. I didn't take I felt like everything was disrespect. If I felt like it was disrespect, it was going to be a problem. The thing about me and where I needed to heal from was because everybody had me fucked up. They did, everybody. So if anybody did anything, I saw that as, oh, okay, I got you. Like, and sometimes it wasn't even things that were intentional towards me. And so that was part of my healing, to not feel like things were intentionally thrown my way or that things were intentionally done to me. Case in point, like I said, sometimes when I would see my sister-in-law like interacting so closely with the ex-wife, I would feel like that was intentionally, towards me. And I had to like step out of this box and kind of get out of my head and get out of my feelings and realize, okay, this is not like, these are two women. She had a whole relationship with this woman like long before you even around.
Right.
And so it took like a lot of healing there. But in general, like I said, I've been lucky enough overall to have some good in-laws that have been supportive of my husband and myself. I think that has been the one hiccup and the one wrinkle. And I'll be honest, it took us probably like 5 to 7 years to.
Sounds about right. Like, because it takes time for you to like mature as a
It
woman,
does.
right?
It does.
And then like there's a space where you can just kind of mature and like and work on your any insecurities that you may have, because like be honest, before you get married, them insecurities kind of don't go away.
They
Like
don't.
actually nothing changes besides your last name, and that's after the documentation is put in the mail.
Mhm.
Like nothing really, there's no instant when you get married, oh,
Yes.
all of this is going to,
Mhm.
no, that is a lie. Don't fall for it, sis.
Right.
Like don't
It
fall
ain't
for
no
it.
switch.
Yeah, there's no switch. Like people are going to be themselves, and sometimes it's going to be even better, or sometimes it'll get worse, or sometimes you're going to have those ups and downs in your marriage. It's just going to happen at the end of the day. I think with I have been very blessed because my mother-in-law minds her damn business. Like she really
Yes.
don't bug us. Like I feel like I'm so blessed in that area because I don't have to and that's another thing. Before you get married, make sure you set your boundaries before you get married. Because I think
True.
what I'm seeing with some of my homegirls, they have overbearing parents, like overbearing mothers, who come in and they feel like they still have a say so, like they still get an opinion. I'm like, you always get an opinion, but
Right.
you have to respect whatever I'm going to decide to do. So I think boundaries are going to be like essential before you
True.
even get in a marriage with someone. So like, and even with me and my mom have a really great relationship where we can talk and all that, but like everybody knows that like I protect my husband, like I'm a
True.
protector of my I understand it, okay? I understand that yes, he has his battles, but when it comes to like internal, like family things like that, I'm gonna have his back. Like if he wrong, depending on if it's wrong, I don't mind correcting, but I do have a sense of like protection with him. And like even with friends with boundaries, we may have like these deep discussions and talk about relationships, but you better not ever, think
Bring
you
it
can
back up.
go
Right.
bring
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
back,
Yeah. Fact.
um yeah, with Estella, what about men with overbearing mothers? Oh,
Yeah. That's exactly, yeah, what you're talking
yeah,
about. That's
yeah.
exactly.
Because it happens on both sides. You have the mothers who cannot relate, what did they call it? Son husbands or whatever.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so uh, what I will say with having I don't have to deal with that. That's not my thing that I have to deal with. But I will say for those who have to deal with the overbearing mother, it starts with the son. It
Yeah.
starts with the son
He needs to check
creating boundaries with his mother first and foremost, because that is That's your responsibility. That's who you came from. That's who birthed you. So you have the space. Like, I don't feel as a wife, I should be checking your mom. Now, if I have to, I don't mind, but I
Right.
would prefer that you go ahead and check your mom before I have to check your mom.
Right, because then it's just not good for anybody. It's just not good. Well, and the same thing. So I don't know if your husband has sisters. So
She
the
has one
same.
sister and she mind her business too.
Oh, that's so good. Praise God. Go ahead, sis.
They
The
checking
same
on
thing
us like, you
can be
know.
true with like sisters because sometimes, and especially if they're really close. So
Yeah.
sometimes you can have like overbearing siblings. And I just point out sisters
Yes.
because, sometimes we kind of have that motherly, kind of instinct.
I
And
have
I'm
all
familiar with
sisters,
it.
okay? All of them sisters.
Okay, so you know how it goes sometimes. And so I've had, like I said, praise God, me and my sister-in-law are at a good place now. But we've had some run-ins in the past. And again, and having to do with sometimes involving the wrinkle, of having like the ex-spouse and like I said, it's taken me a lot of healing. Because the old me, I too, like when I went into marriage, like I just had this concept. I'm like, oh, okay, you friends with her, y'all hanging out like that. Ain't no way y'all ain't talking about me. So, and I was firm to that, and I really felt like I stood on that. Like,
And
so
that,
it
do you
was
feel like that's like a story you created in your head, or was it
like,
factual?
and well, ultimately, it was
Okay.
like a story that I had created, like in my head. Because, and again, and I won't blame everything, but I grew up with kind of like that thought process, And I
Yeah.
talked about on Black Men, I'd be like not really trusting women like that, and that sort of thing. So, of course, when I was presented with like that scenario, like, okay, wait a minute, like, your brother did moved on, he remarried, like, why are you still hanging out so tough with his ex-wife? So
Mother
that
was
was,
pressed. Okay, you was
yes,
pressed.
and again, that was the old me, like everybody had me fucked up. So, that was the first thought that came to my head, like, oh, okay, so y'all over there talking about me. Got you. So I would be cordial to her, but I never like opened up with her or like gave a chance for a real relationship because I always felt, like that I almost like a lack of trust. And I think
Right.
that's really what it was. I almost felt like, okay, well, I can't be open with you. I can't tell you anything because you're going to go back, and
And
tell the other party. Yeah, that kind of thing. So it was like a lack of trust because, and ultimately, I do feel, and again, of course, I was never there for it. I don't know the extent of whatever, but I never had any proof on anything. So that's why a lot of times we do have to get out of our feelings and things really have to be fact based. There was never anything fact based that's
right.
indeed what was happening. So it was a lot of like feelings involved, and a lot of, and I can transparently say this, we all felt like immaturity, on my part because I had conjured this story in my head, and so I was just like refusing to even give a relationship a chance. And so thankfully through growth and time, now we're in a much better place and I feel comfortable, like about being like open. But like I said, I did have to set some boundaries because they were accustomed to. And I don't know if this was just so foreign to me. I don't know to other people if, this is normal. So even when somebody, because even after my husband was like divorced from his ex-wife, he had like another like serious relationship before me. And
Hmm.
so they would still invite when they would have things, they would still invite they would
The
still
other,
invite people. Yeah, they would
uh,
still invite the ex-wife. And so, like I said, I don't know. So it was some boundaries like that I just had to set off top. Because to me, I didn't think it was appropriate. And I thought it was
you
disrespectful.
you think if you two had a better relationship, would you still feel the same way, or it's just because y'all didn't have the relationship off top to set the tone so that if she was around, you wouldn't feel like a threat or anything like that, or that like it because do you feel like your husband like contributed, or did he help or hinder y'all kind of working together, or was it you, girl? Was it you, or was it
Well, and my
or her?
husband is really, and so it
Uh-huh.
And oh my God, it took a therapist. Like I said, it was literally like 5 to 7 years in. I'm like, I'm
Okay,
still on
okay.
my healing journey. And it took me a long time to even get to that point. But it took us going to a marriage counselor. And the marriage counselor said, because I am like super close with my brothers, like it's
Mhm,
off to the
mhm,
wall with my brother. Like we talk I'm really super close with them. And so my husband is close with his sister in that way. And the marriage counselor said, well, could you imagine if something were to happen, like with your husband and your brother, like can you imagine a position you would be in? And
mhm,
like can you imagine like if your husband like had that energy towards your brothers, where he had kind of conjured up this story in his head, can he and so it took him like putting that into perspective for me to say, okay, you know what, this is not right, like this is selfish. And I'm putting my husband in a situation where, I'm almost making it where he has to choose a little bit,
mhm,
between, his wife and having a happy home and having a relationship, like with his sister and with his sibling, like that sort of thing. So it
mhm.
took that. And I think he was to the best he could, because I've had to, as I've matured, I've had to like recognize that that's a difficult situation too.
It
I
is.
think
It
he
is.
was to the best that he could, trying to mitigate things. I still don't know to this day, but I think my husband was the one that enforced like them not inviting her like to family gatherings, continuing to do that.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a conversation. I never had to say anything to them about it. I just made
Eventually,
sure
she
with my
just
husband.
stopped being
Right.
present.
It just, yeah, it just, and I don't know, because like I said, at the time I was, everybody had me fucking, I don't know if they just knew that it was going to be a bad situation, that it wasn't going to end well for nobody, or, if my husband, had that conversation with them. And so when I would see little things, like I did appreciate that. I
Yeah.
did appreciate, okay, he respects me enough. He's respecting my boundaries on that, because that was just one that we talked about compromise. That was something I just wasn't willing to compromise on. I'll
Right.
compromise on that your family, they know her, they have like kind of a familiar relationship with her. She's been around your family for several years.
Mhm.
I can compromise on that. So they're going to still talk to her, whatever the case is. But when we have gatherings, when we have that sort of thing, to me, there was no place for her. Like,
Mhm.
and I honestly, I can't say that if we would have had a better relationship, because I've talked about that experience too. Again, I was very young, and apparently there were still some, and I never have been through like divorce or like anything like that.
Mhm.
We've been transparent about our situation. I filed for divorce before, and
Yeah.
I know how that felt and how difficult it was.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't even imagine. So now I have a lot more empathy for my husband's ex-wife, and I'm kind of able to I guess understand and empathize
Mhm.
with the scenario a lot. Like I said, I had never been divorced or been through anything like that, so I can almost empathize a little bit, with
Mhm.
how that situation may have been. Of course, they had kids, and it's hard. Like I said, I filed for divorce before, so I couldn't even imagine when you feel like everything that you plan for yourself, and everything that you have for the future is not coming to fruition anymore. And like it's just over with. And so I can understand how at that time you might feel like your life is over. And, now you have this new woman coming in, that's like, oh, I'm gonna get it together. Like, that's
It's
wanting to be a
new for you.
family.
Yeah. Like
It's
this
new,
your first
yeah.
rodeo,
And now
which
you
is a
see
lot
your
different.
kids, with a new woman. And so it's like now they have a family, over there. And, you're just having to sit with that. So I can imagine like how difficult, that was. So now I have a lot of empathy for the situation. At the time I didn't. I'll be honest about that. I did not. It wasn't that I came in seeing her as a threat,
Mhm.
because I tried to kind of create those relationships. I think I came in probably like a little bit too strong, a little bit. I was kind of thinking, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna be cool. We're gonna get the kids, like we're gonna be a family over here. We're gonna do, not recognizing that, okay, this lady just lost her family. So
Right.
she's not
Her
really
family has been
down,
broken.
been
Yeah.
broken, yeah. So she's not as open, and she not really down, to be so cool with me and for it to be a good,
This is not
like
a raw, raw, raw period for her.
it wasn't. And so I didn't understand it. And my 21-year-old self, I didn't get that. So at the time, she wasn't as receptive to me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, oh, okay, bitch, fuck you too then. And I was being straight honest, and that was like the end of it. Like, okay,
Oh no.
because again, how my personality, so it was like, okay, well, I've opened up, I've tried to be vulnerable. I'm trying to, take a step back, and at the time in my head, what I thought was the right thing. I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm putting down kind of my defenses and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And, when you have a person that's that way and they do let you in, it
Mhm.
can get really, and I'm not gonna lie, I got like toxic. It'll get toxic if
Yeah.
if we get rejected. And so,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
when
I'm
she
trying to be
rejects,
open and you're being
yeah.
closed, all of
hmm
that stuff. Oh,
And
we
like
just want to give
now
a
in
shout
my
out.
maturity, I can see why the rejection was there. At the time,
Right.
I didn't understand though, and so it was like, okay, so if that's what she gonna be about, like, oh, this what we doing? Okay, I got you. So, and and it just kind of almost like went on from there. But like I said, through growth, through therapy,
Mhm.
praise God, I've been able to heal from a lot of things and been able to, be open to a lot of different perspectives. And like I said, now I have a lot of empathy for her, at that time and what the situation may have been. And I can like honestly be transparent and reflect on maybe where some of my missteps were. And just recognize that, yeah, I did some things wrong too. And that it just, just the time, it was just a bad situation for everybody.
Because we,
But
we we accept what accountability,
I
right?
know, yes, come on now, praise God.
We want to give a shout out to Tamika out there, security boss unsolicited. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining in.
Yeah, and y'all
Um,
grab the link, hop in the conversation. We would love to talk to y'all and get y'all's perspectives.
yes, yes, all awesome. And what was that up here? Who is this up here? Real talk with Mimsy Limbs. Okay, that's right. You're not gonna say nothing about my husband
Right?
in my
Hey.
presence. Whatever you say in your quiet time is your business, but you definitely not gonna say anything, in my presence. And I think
Right.
that's like you setting the stage,
Yeah.
of how you're going to interact in those family dynamics. And like, and it's a great thing that my family minds their business, but because my family is so close, right? Like we're very close. Not to say his family, they're not as interactive as we are on our end. Like we could kick it every Sunday or Saturday. When it's a birthday,
Mhm.
we're all there. Holidays, like it's crazy. It was crazy during the holidays. And like his parents are very quiet. He's very quiet. They a small family of four. I have I got five sisters, six sisters.
So let me ask you, so how is it when y'all do stuff together? Like
Let
with
me
both
tell
families?
you. Okay, I'm gonna be completely transparent, because at the end of the day, like with my husband can do no wrong. Okay, like he can do no wrong in the eyes of my mother
Yes,
or
I love it.
sisters, or like he is like good as gold. Like he cannot do anything wrong. So sometimes it's frustrating for me. I'm like, y'all don't catch. He is shady. Like he can be shady. He got them like it's so undercover or whatever. But like I really feel like they will go to bat for him, and they don't play about me either. And so that's the
That's
thing.
good.
Like we have grown. I think when we were younger, we would get into these little spits and spats because it's a bunch of girls. You got your cycles and stuff going all crazy, and
Yeah.
it's a lot. But I think now that we're a little bit older, a lot more mature, we are respecting boundaries. Nobody really introduces their significant other to me. I'm the last one to know, because I'm the bulldog. Like I'm like, what your goals is, what do
Right.
you
What's your intentions with my
what's your
sister?
intentions with my sister? Like that is me, because I can see through stuff real. Like my intuition is
Yeah.
very strong. So, but sis, tell me, like, if it's a little play thing, then I won't
Right.
back
I
up.
ain't
But
even
if
trying
it's
to go
somebody you
in.
considering, you
Right.
know, I
Right.
need to know
True.
who's gonna be around the
Right. Yes.
family.
Set this. Yeah. Just let me know. Yes. I can put this in
I'm not
place.
compromising on. Like, if I know, like, ooh, that's something I don't compromise on. I'm just not. Like
Yeah.
my mom recently got married it's about 2 years. It'll be 2 years this year. But like at first I was like, like, like my mom gives me so much grace, but because I've seen the relationships and the things over the years, like I'm
Yeah.
very guarded about her.
You want the
Although,
best for her.
yeah, I'm like, who is this? Who is whatever? Like, who is this
Right.
guy?
What you want with my mama?
What's wrong with my mama? Like, come on, we've been through enough, okay? Like,
Right. Let's let her be, honey.
yeah. So like I had to relinquish that too. Like she got married and she wanted us all to be in like the in the wedding. And I was the
Oh.
only sister who wasn't in the wedding because it was so quick for me. I was not there. Like I'm like, I don't know who this man is. I will say from that moment until now, like I consider him my child's grandfather,
Oh,
which is
that's huge.
okay.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yes, he's proven he loves my mom. Like he's there for her. Like this is the
Wow.
healthiest relationship I've seen her in. So love can happen after 50 because my mom is in her 50s. Like don't
True.
ever feel like you give up. You can give up on love. Just be selective. So
Right.
I'm glad that like he loves God. He's active in the church. He respects my
That's
mom.
good.
He's always by her side, and he really loves our interaction with each other and our like he just love
That's
our family
amazing.
dynamic.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, at first I was like, I don't
What
know who
is
that is.
that?
Like,
Girl, I
who
know what
man is
that.
this? Are you sure?
I
Well, I'm
feel
just
that.
gonna
I
be
feel that.
calm. I mean, and that was like a boundary because at the end of the day, like, who tells their mama no? Me.
Right. Right.
Me.
But I mean, you have to establish those now. You have to. And see, with brothers, because I have only brothers, so it
Okay.
was like different. So the stuff I would run into is because
Awesome.
my oldest brother, so my dad just wasn't like around like that. So my oldest brother and my mom was like sick a lot, so he had to raise us, a bit. So my
Mhm.
oldest brother like was that father figure. So if something happened to my car, if something needs to be fixed, like I'm calling my brother and he's there. And so
Mhm.
it took probably like 2 years or so into my marriage for me to recognize, and when my husband would say stuff about it, I'm like, because I was no, you don't say nothing like my brothers are. That's it. Like you don't say
Yeah.
shit about my brothers. Like you can't say that. No, no, they are gone. You don't say anything about them. So I was like ignoring, and at the time, I went healed. Like no, So I probably went off like, no, you don't say nothing about my brothers. But I couldn't clearly, understand what he was saying. So if something happened with my car, I'm
Mhm.
calling my brother, and I got a whole ass husband in the house. So it was those kind of things that I had to, kind of get used to. And
Mhm.
those are things that I almost had to, and it's not a compromise, but it just didn't come naturally for me. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it's because so I grew up with like three brothers, so it was just always, they were just always the people that I called if I had a problem with anything. It got to the point if we had something going on in the house, the AC went out or something like that, I'm calling my brother. When again, I got a whole ass man, a whole ass husband in the house.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
that started to like almost emasculate my husband. Like and make
Like,
him
where do I fit if your
exactly.
brothers keep stepping in?
Yeah,
How am I
like
gonna
you
be the
know,
man? Yeah.
and it's something about another man, coming into, and so of course I didn't, and of course at the time I didn't understand that. I wasn't trying to hear what my husband was
That's my
talking about.
brother though. He
That's
always
right.
be
That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's what he do. Like, and in my mind, like, okay, that's just what I do. I call literally if I had a flat tire or anything, I'm calling my brothers because that's what I had always done. And so it took kind of those. So those are some of the issues. And I know I'm probably not alone. I'm sure women with like brothers are women that have probably a good stable father in your lives. I'm sure probably struggle with those same things. You really have to make a transition in marriage that now that's your husband's responsibility.
Right.
And it took my brother even, having to say to me because I guess he came to the realization too. And he probably could tell the energy my husband was giving off because he like he kind of low key shady. Like he ain't say that, he would kind of throw that low key shade out there. So it took my brother too to be like, well, no, you have a husband now. Like, oh, well, what does your husband think about it? It took him kind of doing some of those things to help me to realize too, okay, it ain't right what you're doing. So it's interesting to me, kind of the different dynamics with your sisters, of course. And that's just how we are as women, tend to get in the business and give our opinion. But with brothers, it's kind of more of that reliance, especially when it's older brothers, that
Yeah.
reliance that you have on them and transition in that, now to your husband. And like I said, for me, I'm sure that probably normal people, and I shouldn't say normal, but people from a traditional family, they probably
Mhm.
have to relinquish that from their dad to their husband. But because my brother kind of had that dad role and was so strong, I didn't really understand completely that, okay, I need to relinquish this responsibility from my brother and hand it over to my husband. So,
Yes.
so I mean, on
Leave
both sides.
please happens on both sides.
Yeah, so from
Right?
both sides. So like that's why I said when we say in-laws, it can be dynamics. So that's why I kind of brought it up about my brothers because
Yeah.
that was something that my husband, from his perspective of in-laws with his, my brothers, his brother-in-laws, I know that was something that he dealt with.
Yes. I feel like I had to do that with my friends. Like it wasn't my family so much. Like I have some girlfriends that became some sister friends. And
Oh,
so I would talk to them before I would talk to my husband sometimes. Like I would just talk to them because that was a safe place. And, I would just go about, I have a full on conversation with them. And then I give him the bits, I give him the highlights, which
yeah,
honestly, I learned that highlights are better, but I could give him highlights first. And then I can talk to my homegirls about it because I always want to bring good news and good things to my relationship first and give that energy in that situation
yeah,
versus going outside. And like some of my girlfriends, like in the beginning, like, okay, so I have a couple of girlfriends, she was newly married, and we were trying to tell her, like, hey girl, when you get married, you ain't gonna be talking to us. Like, you need to redirect that energy because I had learned in my situation not to do that. Not that they were overbearing. Actually, they were like, no, girl, you need to. They encouraged me to redirect that energy back to my husband, which was
yeah,
wise.
yeah,
However, I lend that information out to newlywed. Like, you need to kind of go within because there's so many different changes. You are literally a blended family individually because you're coming
true.
from two different backgrounds. Mine is having, separate everything. Like you're literally blending together. So we're all in a way blended families when we're coming together because you're, outside of
Yeah,
kids and things like
two
that.
totally separate families. Yeah.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about really briefly, just kind of switch gears, compromise with like your love languages. Okay. So, I wanted to talk about how do you find the compromise when you don't love the same?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
And that's something, and especially like when your love languages are on two totally different spectrums, like
Yeah.
way, it's very hard. It's very hard. Like one example, and I talked about this on PMU before. So words of encouragement and words of affirmation, baby, that's me. I need it all the time. Like I need my husband to be like, yes, baby, look you over there looking like a snack, like a whole pound cake. I'm ready to go. Like that's what I need. I like that. Like I need that. That's one of the big things of my love language, and my husband doesn't need that. Like that is so low on his list of, that's like his last of the love languages. So he almost has to consciously like remind himself, like compliment me or to, tell me, and the other thing too, he's not much for like sharing his feelings or that sort of thing. So I
Mhm.
almost have to pull it out of him. And so, especially the complimenting piece has been almost like a challenge because it's like, I don't care what anybody, else, if you say I'm pretty, whatever the case is, I don't really care too much about that. And not to sound, I don't want that to sound, of course, we all like compliments and I appreciate it. I'm not talking about like from my sisters and that kind of stuff because I love
Yeah.
that too. But from like other men and that kind of thing, I'm not worried about that. I don't care about nothing about that. only
True.
compliment I care about from a man is from my husband, you know?
Right.
And he just did it because he doesn't need that. And because that's not high on his love language, it's like he almost have to consciously. And so that raised issues for me because I'm like, wait a minute, you don't think I look good? Like, what's the
What's
problem?
up?
You
Yes, I think our husbands have the similar love. Like my, there's five. So what are your love languages? What are your
so mine are, well, I'm a little tri-spirited.
me
So
too?
mine
These three
are,
things. Hmm.
so I like of course words of affirmation, that's my number one.
Hmm.
I do like acts of service.
Hmm.
I'm not so much into like even in terms of gifts and that sort of things. I think because I'm so driven and because of how kind of I am career and professionally wise, I don't. It, to me, it doesn't matter like what you probably whatever you buy me, I could probably buy for myself. It's more to me about the thought. It's more to me about, so acts of service go a lot further than me. Like it's sexy for me. Oh, clean up the kitchen. Get the kids together. Take the kids to school. That's the kind of stuff that turns me on and that I really value.
Uh-huh.
Like things that I felt like that you've put thought
Yeah,
into,
action candid in. Yes, action for the
yes,
love.
actually, yes. It's those things. And it's one more. I'm sorry, because I always forget the love languages. I might have
It's
to.
I got you though. Words of affirmation, acts
Yes.
of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch.
So quality time and physical touch. So physical touch, I'm not gonna lie. And to me, those kind of go together a bit. So physical touch too is huge for me. And I know sometimes, and not just like sexually, but sexually too,
Yeah,
though.
holding hands, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
all those kind of things because I'm big, and that just makes me, to me, like those things make me feel loved,
Hmm.
And so that's another thing too with my husband. Physical touch is one that's high for him, but and I think as with most men, it's sexual, and it's like,
No,
oh,
my husband is not. He
that's
is not.
and that's
He is
good.
not.
That's
So
good.
that's
A lot of men, it's like, physical touch, when they see that, it's like, it's sexual. And it's mostly all sexual.
no.
And so my husband, physical touch is really high on his, but it's more from like the sexual aspect of it. Which sexual is high on mine too. But at the same time, that's not the only time that I want. I really, and I'm a very like touchy feely person. So I'm always like touching on my husband, or he in the kitchen, washing dishes or whatever. Like I'm always like really touchy feely with him. Whereas for him, he's not so much that way. Of course, sexually, then okay, everything, you ready to touch, you ready to hug, kind of all that stuff. And so we had to, almost compromise on because I'm like, hey, I don't only need affection when it's time to get down. When you trying to get something
Oh
that you want,
man,
like
hear
I
me
need
loud.
like you
Come
need to
on, say that.
all the time because that's gonna make me wanna, get down. That's gonna make it better. Don't, only when we get into bed or any of that kind of stuff. That don't need to be the only time, that you being super affectionate because I'm just feeling like,
Hear ye, hear
oh,
ye. Okay,
yes,
like
I
like,
always say that's I always say that's whole treatment. Don't treat me like a
welcome
hoe.
on
Don't
back.
treat me hey,
yes, that part, yes,
don't treat me like that. Don't treat me like a side piece. Don't come in here being nice
Yeah.
at 10 o'clock at night.
yes,
You ain't saying that to me all day. No.
That's why I was
exactly,
telling, like,
yes,
you have to, like, the bed. Okay, let me just give y'all a little song, okay, for the men
yes. Come
folk
on, get
that
into it,
want
sis.
that
Get into
is
it.
having a little trouble opening up their wives, okay, because it's going to take effort because we are
Yeah,
slow cookers, we are not microwaves. You
that
cannot
part.
do it. Now, I'm not
Little bit
saying
ham.
know your wife, okay, because there
Right.
are some hot pockets out here who can get it on at any given time,
So
right?
can.
Know your wife, okay? Know your wife, know what she like, know whatever. But I will say for the crock potter, I'm a crock pot, okay?
She said crock
I
pot.
like
Baby, I'm a
I like
slow bake, honey
to
baked ham, honey. This
it
glaze
starts
got to get right.
it starts from it's mental for one thing. Like when you crack the mentalness of, the woman and like really connecting with her soul and like,
Yes.
pouring into her, like you can open her up in ways that you've never fathomed when you
Right.
have really tuned in with your wife. I will
Child, she
say,
didn't
like,
do anything.
I'm just saying, like, don't get up in there. You done caused hell all damn day.
That
I
part.
mean, you done been a grumpy whatever all day, and then you get in the bed rubbing shoulders and rubbing toes and
No,
rubbing legs.
don't do
No,
that.
That
sir.
part. That
That's why I
part.
told him, I be like, oh, so you want the $6 experience tonight? Because you ain't said nothing to me all day. So that's what you getting. You getting what
That
you
part.
saying. Oh,
And I
okay.
ain't gonna lie, because I be wanting
And
to,
now
so I might give you a little something, but I ain't finna
right.
be out
No.
swinging from the ceiling
It's
fan
not
and
a
keep on.
chandelier night for you, bro.
But
It is
it's
not a
not,
I
all
chandelier
this
night.
swinging
understand
from
I
the
have a
ceiling
duty.
and popping like this,
Right.
making stuff, baby. You ain't not getting all of that. I mean, I would still give you some because I probably low key wanted some too.
I
But
have a
Right.
duty. I'm gonna do my duty. I'm gonna get, I'm not
that's
everything to
right.
all.
I mean,
But
I probably
you
wanted
gotta
some
pay to
too,
play.
but
Hey,
You
Kaylin.
gotta pay to play, boo boo. You can't be,
that's
Look,
what
what you
it is.
it can
no.
start from either flowers or you leaving a message or
Yes.
you sending a text
Right.
message or you praying over me in the morning like, you know
That,
what,
yes.
baby, sleep in for a little bit, I'll take care of the kids, or bringing me breakfast in
Right.
bed, like,
That was one of the things
Right.
that stayed me.
go get dressed, be ready at 7 o'clock,
That
stuff like
part.
that.
Right.
No,
Take me
pack a
somewhere.
bag. Pack a bag. That's my love language.
Yes.
Pack a bag.
Right.
Don't bring no
You have
clothes. We go shopping
you
when we get there. That's my love language.
I mean, I'll talk about that because when I have a toddler, I have a really itty bitty baby. So like she just be, she could just bust in at a moment's notice. She's an out of town
And
sleeper. She has not been since she came out the room. She wakes up at random times. I was like, I can't be getting all sexified, putting on this cute outfit, and then I gotta run up out the room because the 3-year-old, done bust the head open. I was like, so if you want me to give you that top tier experience, you're gonna have to take me somewhere. You have to take me somewhere. I have to be out of the house because if I'm here, those kids be like, look,
oh, but I gotta
they
tell
want
you, sis,
access
though,
to
girl,
me.
you gotta be down. You gotta be down, girl, because I got 5 kids. You gotta be down
Yeah,
and
what
5
is
little
that?
kids.
Okay, because I got
Right.
one. I don't
Girl,
know
you
how
gotta
you
do
doing it.
it.
I'm
I'm
down for it, but I can't give
like,
you
look
a
at this.
long
You gotta
experience
put
with
on that
no.
show they like, baby. You got when you can't have kids, you have all them kids, baby. You gotta be down to get it in the washroom when it's on the good part of their
That's
show.
what I'm
I'm trying to,
saying.
you gotta spice it up because you can't be always waiting to go nowhere. It's because we struggled with that. Like at first, like I said, we have all, and our kids are right behind each other. They five,
Girl.
6, 7, 9, and then we got a 7-month old. So for like 5, 6 years straight, we had nothing but little kids, little babies. And we struggled with that,
Yeah, I
baby.
had nothing but quickies.
Uh-uh. Baby, you got to put Lion King on to be down
Now
again
I am a
while they
proponent
watch.
of the quickie. I'm a proponent of the quickie, but before we had kids, it could be a whole thing. It could be this
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah, you have to
long
adjust
drawn
when you
out
have kids.
experience. Yeah, and I'll be saying it. I was like, we can't, we got to do the quickie now. If you want we got the whole night to ourselves uninterrupted. I have
Melatonin.
to be removed.
That
She
part.
Melatonin.
said melatonin.
That part. Like for real, I'm
Teasing.
trying to
I'm
tell
teasing.
you.
Don't abuse the melatonin, but
Yeah,
sometimes,
Felicia, you're right. Girl, I'm telling you, Felicia, girl, you got to be willing to get it in the washroom. I'm trying to tell you. Don't knock the top of the washing machine. I ain't gonna even lie. Don't knock it.
yeah, I think my love. So my husband is acts of service, and welcome, Estella.
Hi,
Yes.
how y'all doing?
How
I
you doing
I
today?
just wanted to say and ask a question real quick. I'm literally at work listening.
Sure.
I can't even believe y'all are up because we were on late last night. I'm like, I don't know how people are up right now. But I wanted to ask because you began speaking about love language. I'm single and I'm an older single woman, and
Mhm.
I have a desire to be married, but sometimes I teeter between like, like this is so ghetto, like dating in the streets. But when you were courting your husbands, these type of things, like, were these things that you were talking about when you were dating, like the love languages and like really paying attention to it then, or is it just like it was it just like came together, and like once you were married you were like, okay, let's figure this out? Like I just have a lot of questions because I'm trying to
I would be
understand.
honest, Stella. No, these were not. And honestly, at the time, if I would have known these things, I wish I would have known about love languages, and I wish I would have known all those things. And I know, like some people, like even Sdot, they did like premarital counseling and all that. I'm gonna be transparent. We all family here. We didn't do none of that. I got pregnant. Like we had been dating, like maybe not even a whole year, and I got
Mhm.
pregnant. And so we, didn't really, kind of do, all the things that I would have loved to do. They say when you know better, you do better. If I would have known about all these things, I definitely, think that those are things that we, should have talked about, and that it would have been great to talk about and great to have an understanding. Because I mentioned earlier, a lot of these things that we have worked through took us roughly like 5 to 7 years. And so I just think back on how great, our marriage, or how much better our marriage probably could have been, if we had known, or if we had discovered a lot of these things a lot sooner, a lot much quicker than we did, now, like 5 to 7 years within marriage. So I think that's great. And I think it would be beautiful if, when you find the right person, if y'all could talk through these things and talk through your love languages and really get a good foundation, on what your boundaries are, what his boundaries are. And I think that, it'll save a lot of hassle, like into the marriage. I don't regret anything in my life, because I feel like it's all part of a plan. And we, the way me and my husband are now, I think our relationship is strong because of everything we've been through. But would I have not liked to go through some of the things and some of the hardships that we went through, even like up until filing for divorce and all that kind of, would I have liked to avoid it? Yes. So I think those things, and the love languages, and kind of talking through those things, premarital counseling, I do think all that stuff is very important. I just personally, we didn't do those things because of the situation, the scenario, and I didn't know a lot of those things. And my husband didn't know either. He had a failed marriage, and he really didn't know. He had never seen examples of what a marriage looked like, what a healthy marriage looked like. I had never seen examples of that. And so you really had, even though my husband was older, you had like almost too young. And when I say young, I'm talking about in terms of life experience and in terms of healthy experiences, people trying to figure shit out that really, didn't have any guide, didn't have any experience, didn't have any of that. So personally, I didn't, but I think it's beautiful when couples are able to do that. And I would encourage anyone that's thinking of marriage, that's thinking to date, definitely to heal yourself, and to work on yourself first, and go into a relationship as a healed person, and then to work with, and I would encourage people too to get with a healed person. Kind of do that whole courting and dating process. I think sometimes as women too, we almost be scared, but it's a lot of stuff we need to dig into with a man. Like
Well,
I need.
I I
Go
find
ahead.
it interesting, a current experience that I've had. Like, I just feel like sometimes my friends are telling me, they'll be like, "You doing too much, you're doing too much," and I'll be like, "I'm just trying to figure out what these guys want." Like how they say vet, and I'm not like very experienced with dating in my big age, but I'm just like at a point where I'm like, my biological clock is ticking, and I'm like, okay, what's your love languages? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, run me down the list. And it's like, you're so intense. But, they don't really be like, ooh, like, ooh. But, I like I'm just trying to figure this thing out, because I'm like,
I
Mhm.
would
I'm a
I
little
would
bit
say
over it pretty much. But at
there's
the same
a
time, just trying to learn from people who know, who have been in that position, whether they're divorced or whatever,
there's
married,
a
all of that.
there's a lady. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, maybe I'm mute again, Lord. There's a lady on Instagram. She is a dating coach, and her name is Torah, Torah
Oh,
Sense.
I've seen her.
And I love her content for women dating intentionally. And I mean, you may not be able to afford her fee, but there's a ton of free information on her page about being intentional about how you are married, how you need to heal, how you need to vet, how you need to go about, your relationship, how you need to kind of do it in a way that it doesn't feel like you're on an interview per se. Like make it so intense, like you going down, like you want to make it feel authentic when you are like talking to someone, and make it a friendly conversation in a way, like make it congenial, but you need to get your answers. Like if they're avoiding certain questions and things like that, then that might be a
Sometimes
red
that's your
flag.
answer.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes silence is your answer. Or you give it some time to date. I think most times people think that you can't date multiple people at one time.
Mhm.
I think you can date multiple people. You don't need to sleep with multiple people, because that's a transference of energy that you don't want to
Right.
be out there like that. That's not for everybody. So I would just say that, make sure that you're being intentional. Make sure you kind of write down what you want. It may not look like what's on your paper. Be aware of that, because my husband was not like, he was opposite of kind of what I would normally be with in a way. And sometimes opposites attract, but sometimes they repel. Okay. Like you don't need to be opposite on everything, right? You need to have, the more things you have in common. Well, I learned that through one of my counseling classes I was taking. The more things you have in common, the better, because there's less tension, there's less issues. You usually are on the same page. You usually have the same ideals. Don't look for the opposite, I would say. Like, don't look for somebody who is so different from you where you have to do all this compromising and it can get to the point of frustration. Not saying it's impossible, because me and my husband are very much so, very unique individuals. So we have to kind of work a little bit more because our ideas are a little bit different. But the more things that you have in common, your family values align, your personalities, the things that you're interested in, your hobbies, they don't all have to, but like get like 75-80% of those things on the same page. So you're not fighting about, like, say you 250-50 or it's 64, like you don't want those kind of issues. So you can vet by knowing yourself a little bit more, being intentional about what and who you are as a woman, what you feel like, you bring, what you want him to bring, and how you guys can really go together into this new space.
I just wanted to like say thank you. I'm gonna sign off. I gotta go back. I'm a hairstylist, y'all. So I work with Black women
Okay.
all day.
I
And just
love
having this
it.
conversation and having this in my earbuds right now is just so helpful. I'm grateful for the platform. I just got introduced to the platform like literally 2 weeks ago, and I've been on like all the
Awesome.
time. And I love this. So I'm gonna be tuning in every time you all are on. And thank you for being you and serving the community. Thank you. And I'm gonna
Thank
keep
you,
listening.
Estella.
Thank you for answering my questions.
All
Oh yeah,
righty.
of course. And you're gonna find somebody, and girl, them friends that telling you that you're doing too much. No, you're not. I don't know why we do that. Like, we should not. And I think that word is a trigger for me because I think I get told
Mhm.
like a whole lot. Well, and I have been told a whole lot that I do too much or that I'm too much and this, that, and the third. And you just got to find your tribe. If they, and then too, you have to evaluate where the advice is coming from. Are these happily married friends that's telling you this? That's sustaining good, healthy relationships? Or are these friends that can't find a man, that ain't been able to sustain good relationships that's telling you this advice and that's telling you that you're doing too much? You got to think about too, because I don't know, like, who would be telling somebody. I think those are all appropriate things. I
I
think
want to
those
say
are
for
all
me,
things that we should ask.
in my experience, I feel like a lot of time like some older women would tell me. I mean, like my auntie, like I really don't talk. I don't fool with my aunties. They're toxic. But it's typically people like that for me. I've definitely felt like it was like older women in my family, like you doing too much. And it's just like
But are
that's
they
who you
married
usually
though? Are they in
no, that's
happy,
why I'm
healthy
talking to them.
marriages?
Nope. No.
See, I
Mm-mm.
mean, we have to, just because a person is older, don't mean that they're mature and don't mean that,
Right.
they have the right advice. Just because a person, is older, don't mean that they should be giving advice. Because I know
Yeah.
some, we've talked about this before, I know some 60-year-olds that's still out here giving negative advice to people. So we have to, too, not all elders are giving the right advice. So
Yeah,
you
and a
have
lot
to
of times it's
evaluate, too.
unsolicited. It's
Yeah.
unsolicited because I
Yes,
don't even ask
yeah.
If
you because I
if
know
that
you
was
toxic.
me, I would,
Yeah.
I wouldn't let
Right.
my whatever,
And
whatever.
you have to look at the background. Do they have a current happy, healthy marriage? A lot of them older women that's giving this negative advice, they done had 2, 3, 4 marriages, been divorced, kind of all that stuff. So you have to think about, I take advice from people, and I'll be trans. I can take advice from anybody. But the advice that I'm going to take to heart is from the advice from that I aspire to be like. If somebody has a successful 40-year marriage, yes, I want to take your
Right.
advice. If my mom gives me advice, I'm listening to it, but you ain't had a successful marriage though. So it's kind of,
I think I think successful in a way could be a little like some people, everybody has like various ways of what their success is. So I would
true.
say like with my mom, like there are some things that older people, because either they've gotten taken it, like just look at the background story. Because my thing is, oh, why do you feel that way, or what happened to you? Because I always want to know like the history behind what conclusion. Like, is it from an unhealed place? Is it like a
True.
place where like you just got some
Right.
wisdom that I'm looking out for you. Don't think you got to use my advice, but I'm just telling you what I went through. Like I know some women who came home and they don't have nothing. Their husband cleaned them out. So like they came home to absolutely nothing. So that creates a defense mechanism within a woman that she has to
Yeah,
be guarded. She has to. So I always want to know, one, what's the story? Because I want to
true.
use my discerning spirit about why did you feel comfortable telling me this? Or why did you offer
Right.
this? Did I ask for that? Or is it
Especially if
something
I
I
didn't
just,
ask.
yeah, is there a
Right.
piece
Yeah,
of that I can take, or do I discard all of it? And I think
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with you sharing your opinion. I'm not going, it could just be you just wanted to say that. That's fine. But I'm going to see what I can extract from that as a learning or a lesson. And then sometimes I'm just going to shut it down. Like we're just not
Right.
going to have this
Exactly.
conversation.
Yeah. Or
Oh,
like
I'm
you said, are
sorry you
you
felt that
here
way, and
kind of?
walk away.
Yeah, I don't have to listen to. But it's some people that are not to the place and they listen to
Yeah.
it. They feel like because a person is an elder that
Right.
they giving
Just
good
yeah.
advice and it's fat. And that's not always the case.
Right, right,
You
Yeah, I
right.
just cut them
60-year-old
off.
thoughts
I
out
don't
here
talk to them
too.
anymore. I
Now
don't talk to
I
them
saw
anymore.
you, Brianna, talking about you don't look like
Yeah,
you
I
don't
mean, and
Oh,
if
wait, we were talking about
compromise
the
with
love
the love language.
languages. The like, well, yeah. Well, I have a different. I'm the gifts. I like gifts. So buy me
Uh-huh.
stuff.
okay,
And I like words of affirmation.
Hmm.
My
yeah,
husband's more touchy. Like what is it? The touch. He
physical
likes
touch,
Physical touch,
physical
yeah.
touch, and I think it's quality time, or like where
Hmm.
you just
yeah,
present. He
yeah,
likes that. So we don't necessarily like the same thing. I think for me, I think the way I look at it is it just helps me identify when he's showing me love.
Right.
It's not necessarily about me, like a lot of times people do for you what their language is. So I
yeah,
think for me it's helpful in a way of like I can see, like, even if he's not buying me gifts or saying the words I want to hear, if I see him giving me affection or like trying to just sit with me while I'm doing something, even if we don't talk, like I understand that he's showing me affection. So for me,
Yeah.
that's how it helps me. Now, I'm a little like, if I want to give, I'll just send you the link. Like, this is what I want. If I know my language coming
yes,
up, I go ahead and make my little Pinterest board. Here you go.
Not the
Because that's not
Pinterest.
his
I
love
love it.
language. So he not even
yeah.
thinking about it until the day is coming up. So like, what, I'm gonna sit here and be mad if he don't give me a gift, and I know that's not his language. So I just go ahead. Here's my Christmas Pinterest board. Here's my anniversary one. Send him random links. So that's how we utilize it. I don't expect him to change his love language or even do the love language the way I feel like it should be done. So that's how I feel like it's beneficial. So no, I don't believe you change. It's not really a compromise. It's just realizing that they don't speak the same language as you. Finding the middle ground.
I will say yes. I feel like I do. Like me and my husband, like my love language is words of affirmation, quality time, and what's the other one? Physical touch. Okay. Now I have three on this side, and all of them kind of vary. And we also have like his is receiving gifts. He likes gifts, and he also likes, what's the other one? Acts of service. And so sometimes those things bump heads, right? Because we could be in misalignment with one another, and you really have to take the time to redirect, like, and kind of discern, like, is he's loving me like in his way of loving, like he's loving me the way he sees, how to show love and how to do those things. We bumped heads because, like I said, I want to hear certain things, and if I don't hear that, then I could like tune out, right? You muted,
Sorry.
Bree.
Do you say it? Because when I get cute, if you don't give me enough, I need the energy. I'm be like, so I'm gonna come in front of you and twirl around a few times and be like, and if you still don't get the hint, I'm be like, so how do I look? Like I just say it.
Right.
So do
Right.
you like tell him? You gonna be like,
So
I want
like
to hear it.
I do tell him, and I think it's a reminder because it's not nature for him to act in those ways. So like being empathetic or understanding toward that is just not his realm. But like
Right.
what I'll do is like for him, I'll like buy him random things or like little he like Boston baked beans. So if I go somewhere, I'll like grab a box and I'll like just thinking of you, I'll put a note on there and like just show him or
Sweet.
tell him something. Although words of affirmation isn't his thing, I still want to pour into him because some people don't think they need to hear certain things, but sometimes they do need to hear and be
Right.
reaffirmed in a loving way. So I just want to say hello to OG Patrice out there, Philip Williams, Real Talk with Melissa Barron. Thank you for joining us today. Keep the conversation going. In the chat, what does it say? A man is not going to do things the way you want him to. He's going to do what's best for both. That's not what we're
I don't
talking
agree.
about.
I don't agree. Yeah, I
Let
don't
me
think
tell
he
you,
could. It's yeah. I don't necessarily agree with
that's
he's
not what we're
gonna do
talking
what's
about.
best for both. But yeah.
What's best for both could be for the family, right? What's
Mm-hmm.
best for both could be the family dynamics and or whatever. But when it comes to like you one-on-one with your husband, not the whole, because like before the whole family, before kids, it is just about you. You two are the people who are making said decisions. Like you two are coming together as one and trying to move as a movement or a movement. I'll say a movement,
A
and
unit.
a unit too. Yes, a
Yeah,
unit.
sure, yeah.
And so it doesn't like you cannot negate those needs. Some of them are, you have to identify what's needs and what's a want. Do I really need this? And identify like who you are as a woman first. Have you healed? Is there something you need to
Sure.
unlearn? Is there something you can grow from? Are you being too hard on your significant other in these spaces? Are you being too demanding? Because I know my husband, like, you are so demanding about certain things. I was like, some things I ain't willing to compromise on certain things
Right.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it is not a want, it is a need. This is what keeps
Yeah.
me going and I know the difference. Like if I was just saying, oh, I want a brand new car. Okay, I don't have to have a brand new car. I can
Right.
have, whatever. I can compromise in a certain space, but certain things, it could be due to trauma or maintenance of yourself or whatever you're going through. Like you need to know your needs. And I think some men like don't get needs met because maybe they don't verbalize it enough. Because a woman usually gonna tell you, we could probably write the book on us. Sometimes
Yeah.
when we like have grown and learn from our circumstances or our life experiences, we have a better understanding, a better grasp of ourselves. But yeah, I think with us, how I know that he's showing me love when I don't always feel it or see it is how he is with his love language towards me. So that's
Right.
why I'm like, oh, okay, like, okay, like I can't get
Yeah.
jiggy with this right now. I'm not, I can't like this is
Yeah.
normally you will miss it because they're showing you like that could be a whole big old argument um about you not expressing the way you want them to express and all that kind of stuff. It could be a big thing that kind of tear you apart in a way because like you're not loving me. And sure, you should
Right.
definitely love a person within their love language, but make sure that these are just guides. At the end of
Sure.
the
Yeah.
day, they're not there's nothing is just 100%. So just understanding who you with, who you about to ride out with, who this is
True.
finna.
Yeah.
And look, I'm willing to do. I'm going to choose you every day, even if you don't show up in the way that I want you to show up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still
True.
going to
Well, and I
show up.
think that's where compromise comes into place too.
Yeah,
Because even I see like feel like they were saying in the comments that yeah, men are logical and women are emotional, but that's where compromise comes into place. There are things that women need. And I think that's where in some ways that emotional component like comes into play. If you know that your woman, even though that's not high on your priority list, but you know that your wife, that's her top love language. She needs those words of affirmation. You
I
need
don't
to
agree with you,
have enough love for your wife
Oh, I
to
didn't
be
see
able
what
to
you said.
compromise, even if that's not in your nature. You need to be willing to, you need to be willing to compromise. I think
You said,
compromise, a lot of that too, kind of going back to what we were talking about initially, a lot of that comes from the love that you have for a person. It's like, okay, this is not how I usually move. That's not really important to me, but I know that it's important to my wife. So, I'm going to make sure that her needs are met in that way. That's just like, men are, and they kind of like think sexually a whole lot. That's just like, I'm going to just put it out there. That's just like, say if there's a couple and a man is really into it, because the men can really understand this. The man is really into head. And it's not something that the wife generally does. But and this is just my opinion, I feel like, okay, if you know that this is something that your husband is really into, you should be able to compromise. You should be able to, and I'm saying this to say in a way that like the men can understand, because a lot of sometimes, not all men, but a lot of for men, like the physical touch is usually high on their love language in terms of like and sexual physical touch. So if that's something, if a man really like head, but your wife is not into it, I feel like that wife should be able to, you would want her to compromise on that. You know how, oh, baby, that's what I like. That's what I meant. That sort of thing. So y'all can understand that. So in that same way, there are needs that we have too. It might, just because it's not physical, if a woman needs and wants and craves that words of affirmation, it don't matter who else is telling her, you beautiful, you look good, this and that. She wants that from her husband. And so you should be able, if you love her enough, you should be able to compromise and say, okay, hey, that's not something that's so important to me, but hey, it's important to you. So, I'm going to do that. The same way that, if you like head and you into head like that, you will want her to compromise and say, okay, well, he like head a whole lot. Well, let me figure this thing out. I'm going to have to get it
Put your big
going,
girl drawers on. Come on now. That's
Exactly.
what you want her to do.
Yeah, in the same way that y'all want those things, and maybe it's a little bit easier for y'all to understand because it's physical, you got to give that same, you got to mirror that same thing to your wife. Just
Yep.
like, you like those sexual things, you need those sexual things. A lot of these things, these words of affirmations, that's what I need. And
yeah,
that's
I
what I
think,
want. And truth be told, the more you give me that, the more you make me feel sexy as a
You
woman
get it
and all
back. You
those
get it
things,
back.
yes, you're going to get all of that. You're going to
You're
get
gonna get it
all of
back.
that.
that's the
It's
thing. Like
that's the
women,
game for all the men that's on here. The more you cater to and give to your woman's love language, you ain't even got it. You're gonna get everything you want and need in the bedroom. Because she's gonna be open up, she's gonna go to you can get her to do anything you want. The more
I
you
would
make
I would
her feel
say,
good as a woman.
there's always going to be like the takers and givers in a relationship. So my thing is like knowing your spouse, like what Kayla was saying earlier, like happy wife, happy life. I don't really think that is true, because you got men over
Well,
here miserable in a relationships, and
well,
they not
Well, I
happy.
think people
I
take
think
that out
people
of
say that.
context.
I think people
People
say
take it
that
out of
because women.
context.
I think women we do have the amazing talent to sabotage. So I think that there's sometimes that comes from that. Like I know sometimes if I'm left to my own thoughts too much, and my husband knows at this point, like let me go ahead and talk to her, because if she just sitting over there left to her own thoughts too much and deciding what happened, she gonna be done cooked up all the stuff, and then she gonna be over here acting funny. So I think I
And
mean I
then too
understand
OG.
what it's
Yeah.
trying to say. Like sometimes a woman we can,
Yeah.
I
with
mean,
the
we're
hormones and
producers,
stuff.
right? Like,
Yeah,
Bro.
if
we
you
can,
give us a lot, we
yes,
gonna dish out kind of whatever you set the
Put
tone
right.
in,
for.
yeah,
We gonna
yeah,
multiply you. We
Yeah,
multiply. So it's like,
yeah,
if you, but you still gotta realize you giving that though. So it's like it's not
yeah,
just on the woman. Like if you giving
right,
me, that energy, yeah, I'm gonna give it back to you probably 10 times worse because
yeah.
that's my talent.
yeah,
So
And that's
I
how
think
I
that's what it
take
is.
that as. I don't
Mm-hmm.
take it as, oh, that a husband, that saying as, oh, a husband needs to be catering to his wife and it have to be his wife way, or,
Right.
I don't take it as that. I take it as, kind of people knowing, like you said, that's fact. Women have just innately, and it's probably part of us being emotional creatures, we have a certain power that men just don't have. If we wanted to sabotage a man, I'll be honest, when me and my husband went through stuff and it got down to me filing to divorce, I was like that. Because we just have that, we have a certain, power to us that men don't necessarily have. And like I said, it's probably part of us being emotional and some of those innate characteristics. And so I think that's kind of where that, saying comes from, just because
Right.
we have the power, but I don't take it that way. I take it as, a man, because my husband even says that sometimes. I take it as him knowing, and honestly, I feel like good about, he knows, he wants me to be happy. He knows that, for this house to be happy and for things to, but I feel the same way about him. I want my husband to be happy. And I
Right.
want him, because, like y'all said, whatever he's pouring into me and whatever that's what's going to come out, and it's going to be in abundance. So, and I think it's good for a man to have figured that out. If you pouring goodness into your wife, if you pouring, she's going to multiply it. It's going to be in abundance. The family it's going to run well. So I don't know. I don't take it that way, but I get how it can be taken with a negative connotation. But no, I
Mm-hmm.
think it has to be equality. I think both sides, because I saw growing up, my dad was like miserable. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't even like each other like that. And, it ended up coming out like he was miserable. And so I don't think that's healthy for anyone,
yeah.
for one
Absolutely.
spouse to be running around, so happy, and for, another person to like be miserable. Like, I don't think that's so. I
Mm-hmm.
can see how maybe sometimes people take it like that, but I think it's a, kind of like, I see the same thing with my husband. I want him to be happy too. You know,
I love how women have the capability of creating a home, like making it feel like men always talk about. I hear men, not always, but men talk about how they had like one towel, one, one
Whew,
towel, one piece of
yes,
pot,
must be
one,
ghetto.
like just,
Okay.
when I
Yeah.
came in there, my husband kitchen, oh my gosh, Lord, he had like one pot that he was holding on to and didn't have no curtains up, like just, just like but I love how women have the capability of creating a space of love and devotion, and
yes,
we get to we can be in our femininity and we can use our masculinity with having all of these. We're both okay. I always talk about that. Y'all don't get on me about all of that. I don't want to hear it. These my thoughts, okay? But we are both. But being able how to switch gears and put on, those different hats and stuff, and being able to, there is a power in knowing how to guide your husband without making him feel like he's not the head of the household. And that's a
mhm,
skill.
And yeah,
Everybody
yes,
don't
I
know how to
think
do
that that's part of what I feel like is
that.
the
Hmm.
role like of the feminine. I think I heard something like we
Hmm.
create space. Like my
Hmm.
job
yes,
as a female is to create a space. He gives the structure, or if you want to say like a house, he builds the frame. I fill in the space. So if I come from that place of like I'm creating a space for productivity, for growth, for all of these things. That's like my job as the wife. So I try to remember that. Like, are you creating a space for peace? Are you creating a space for him to be productive? Are you making the space? And the same for my kids. Like that's just how I feel my role. I create spaces so that things can happen. So I think that's good that you said that, how we have the ability to create a space and fill it in and give it like not structure necessarily, but you know, it is a necessary part because
Yeah,
like you said, those
It
bachelor
is.
pads be struggling. Okay.
it's
Look,
true. It is
look.
true.
Like
It
it's a
is
one.
true.
Like I know some men who they know how to cook, and their mom or like they have these good influences where they're able to have that. And I've been in the struggling situation. I haven't seen that in my dating life. Like they're just kind of all over the place. There's so many things we have to like unlearn and
Yes.
relearn and like
Mhm.
extract out of that. And I think that happens. After experience and time, because at the end of the day, like when you first get in that marriage, you honestly don't know what you get in your what you
You
getting your ass
don't.
into.
Mm-mm.
Like
And
you
if
don't
you've
know.
never seen a healthy marriage and a healthy
Yeah,
relationship,
that too.
you just really, you don't know. And I ain't gonna lie, like we all family here. It's true that women can, because that was one of my toxic traits, and I used to say that, and I used to stand on. I used to be proud of. I used to say to my husband, "Oh, don't do that, because if I have a bad day, we all gonna have a bad day." Like I used to be proud of it. Like we would be having a whole family gathering. His whole family would be there. My whole family would be there. I'd be like, "Oh, if somebody piss me off or something, oh no, don't do that, because I'm gonna let we all finna have a bad time." And I used it like toxic, because I ain't gonna lie, I had some real toxic traits, and I would do that. So, but that just speaks to the fact that we as women, we have that, and we do have that power to, because and I figured out that, okay, the same way you being nasty, the same way you being ugly, you can set a whole room off and make everybody want to leave. You can use that, to your advantage, and to use that. It's just things that, as women, and since I know you hate the word femininity, but there are some feminine qualities that we have where we can set the tone.
Yes.
And I think when we use it in a way, because it can be used toxically too. And so that's why I wanted to point that out. And if you're not in a place of healing, you can, be real toxic about it. Because I used to do it all the time. And I used to be proud of that. I used to say it. I used to say, "Oh no, you don't want me to get upset, because the whole room, we all gonna be upset. Like your family's gonna want to leave. Like, don't do that." And now looking back on it, but now, I'm glad that I can use that in a way, to set the tone for it. So even if my husband doesn't have a bad day at work, no matter what happens, if I have a tone set when he comes home and said that this is a place of peace, like we not about none of that. Leave all of that. Whatever happened at work, whatever happened in the streets, leave that out there.
Yeah.
This is a place I'm setting this tone. The kids gonna be in order. This gonna be a place of order and a place of peace. And even for my kids, I try to set that tone. No matter what happens, we gonna get through it. This is gonna be a place of peace. So we do have that characteristic, and I don't think sometimes women,
I
and
don't
it's
think
hard
we
for
know
you.
all the time. I don't think that's something
Yeah,
that's
that's what
always
I'm
I don't think we
trying to
pointed
know.
say.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't
it's hard
know.
for you to take
Yeah.
advantage of it and to use it in a proper way until you're fully healed. Like I said, I always kind of knew. At the time, I didn't realize that's what it was. I just knew, okay, and it was so full. It was so toxic. I just knew that I could set shit off, and that I could, like make
Finna
people
blow up the spot.
uncomfortable.
You're
Yeah,
finna like,
I knew I could do that. I knew I could make people so
yeah.
uncomfortable. I knew I could do that. So at the time, I didn't recognize that, okay, like this is femininity, and this is like something that we have, as a way. I knew I could use that against my husband. And so I would like toxically use it. I don't think you can fully use it until you fully recognize and until you healed in yourself as a woman. You
I
can
think
fully use it and use it properly.
one of the things like with communication, like me and my husband communicate differently. Like I like eye contact. I like, this interaction, right? So one day I'm sitting there and I had to come to the realization. I think a friend actually told me some tidbits, but I'm taking it today, girl. It's my advice today. But my thing is like, do you want to be heard? Or did you want that eye contact? So like learning that, it's not always about what you want, how you want it, about you want to understand where your spouse is coming from and how he's communicating. Or if I rah him, he's not going to hear me at all. Like he's not going to take any of that, or he's going to listen to respond or any of that So what I had to learn, like I actually like changed the tone of my voice. This is femininity, whatever, because we're both anyway. In this era, like where I changed the tone of my voice. I
Okay.
actually asked him, okay, when's the best time that I can speak to you? So that way he gets that, like, I'm not, hey, I'm finna lay all this on you or whatever. Like there are times where men kind of, they can come home and they can have a lot of stuff or be in a funk and bring that all home, or not knowing how to, like, tell us about your emotions. Because if I put that on the household, or if I put that on my wife, like, you got to create a space for him to feel comfortable to come in to lay all
Yeah.
his burdens down at the end of the day. So I would say, like, I had to switch it up because I had to learn how to guide from within our relationship, like guide. And I had to correct myself too. The first thing is like self-correcting. Am I even listening to me? Because sometimes we'll have these conversations and it'll be a whole conversation. Ain't nobody else there. It's just us, we just
Yep,
going.
just you by yourself
Yeah.
in your head.
Yeah, you got
And then you start saying stuff because it sounds good. Like, oh my God. You.
Echo
Yes,
chamber. You in
there's a
echo
Right?
chamber with
time, rah,
yourself.
rah, rah. Like when my
Sound
husband, like,
crazy.
no, if I need to be in my masculine energy, he will hand me the phone to handle something. And so I'll be like, okay, what we not about to do is blah 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 blah. Did you get this? Like if it's like on a business for the house or whatever, like usually he takes care of that. But like I just we have to kind of learn how to be knowing when we need to be hard on certain situations, and learning when to be soft, and learning that there's a duality to all of that. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that, like, as we teeter to the almost to the end of this, but I just wanted to say, like, it's important for us to know who we are as women, as individuals, for us to know that, you can get a lot more out of your mate if you take cues and like really be paying attention to his body language, because that tells a lot. If he's tensing up, his words, like knowing how to like stop the conversation. Because sometimes my husband will like push a conversation. I'm like, hey babe, I am not ready to have this
Right. This
conversation.
ain't the time.
I love you, but I cannot have this conversation right now. But
Yeah.
give me either 24 hours or give me a couple of hours, or like whatever that time period is, give me some time. And then I give that to him too. Like, you know what? I feel like we're going too far in this conversation and it's not going to be productive. Can we take some time out? And like, and using your tools, going to therapy for yourself, like being kind to yourself, because sometimes people don't know how to be kind because they're so hard on themselves, or so hard
They
on,
don't give
you
themselves
know
grace.
yeah, they don't give
Or they
any
never
grace. And
experience, or
so,
they never experience it. I mean, because my husband
right,
just
they don't
comes
even
from a
know what it looks
mean
like.
family. They don't know how to be
Yeah.
nice. He just comes from a mean family. Now he's really sweet and patient, but they're just mean. So some people don't know what it's like to come from kindness or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
what
So
it looks
yeah,
like.
softness is powerful. It can. Thank you from that point of view of a man.
Yeah.
Softness is powerful, but I mean, sometimes you do have to go to war.
Yeah. You got to be firm and
Sometimes.
stand on your own. And that's what I
Sometimes.
was saying. Like, I had to learn, like I said, I always knew that I could do that and that I could, but I used to always use the real toxic. And but when you figure out that it's actually, what is that saying? Like you attract more bees. What is
With
it with
honey.
honey than
With
vinegar or
honey.
something like that? When
Hmm.
once you figure that out and figure out like how to adjust to kind of the different scenarios, like somebody said, like you got the formula. That's the key. Like you can do whatever, you can set whatever tone once you get that down. They said in the comments like that's the formula. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's
Once you
definitely
figure
the
that
formula.
out, yeah, kind of how to be and how to move into and I'm like, and this is like a real true life story. I noticed I was getting so much done. I used to think when I was being all toxic and setting shit off all the time, like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh, he did what I said. I realized like not acting like that and not acting that way and, learning how to flourish in femininity, I get so much more. 10 times more accomplished and 10 times more happy than I was than when I was in that toxic space and really thought I was doing, checking people and this, that, and the third. It's
I have to be careful with what I say. because my husband will go out and get it. Okay. And I have to like be mindful because sometimes I'm just talking. Like, I one time I was like, oh man, I want whatever Instapot or something. And the next, I feel like a week later, here he come with this Instapot. And I'm like, I really wasn't for real. But so like knowing that you have that control in a way.
Yeah.
Especially when you come from, you weren't that way, you learn, because like I'm a gamer, like I'm a heavy gamer. And I have an Xbox. My brother, I know y'all were talking about him earlier, but he works for Microsoft. He's an engineer. And so he always gives me stuff. Like I guess I was spoiled. Some people say that, whatever. So I had an Xbox, and my old Xbox, the new one came out and it was old. But I was like, I'm gonna hang on, I'm gonna keep my little Xbox, And one day I just casually said, oh, I'm gonna get me the new one, when it came out. My husband, I came home and it was there. I was like, damn, this is like $500. I wasn't saying you had to get. He was like, it make you happy. You want to play, I was like, okay. So I had to be careful now because I was like, $500. I wasn't trying to tell you to get the Series X right now, okay? But I mean, it's just, it was different for me because I came from a single parent home and my mom is more masculine, which is why she's not married. She was just like, look, I ain't trying to be feminine. I'm not trying to do none of that. So that's why they got divorced. She was just like, nope. So I had to learn like how to be more feminine and like how to deal with the man. So like once I actually was able to learn how to be in my femininity and do it, it's like a change. It's different. We've been together for 13 years. So, but over that span of time, I've seen the difference. Like Sean was saying, like all of a sudden you just say something, you get it. You just be like, oh,
right.
Okay. I'm not used to this, so it is. You do have
and then like once you're like healing, because I went to counseling individually or whatever, I had to come to Jesus with my husband. Like we had to have a come to Jesus moment because all the things, and just be aware of this too. Like when you're growing, not to say that your spouse or your significant other is not growing with you, but you are growing in a different way. And so as you're growing and developing and all this kind of learning new things about yourself, because at one point when I was in my 20s, I'm like, I'm shedding all of these things. And sometimes you can do that in a relationship. I suggest you do it before you get married. But if you cannot, hopefully you have a spouse that can weather that storm of change. Okay. So, and then it kind of shows his character as well as you're going through your transition too, and making it a safe place for you. But as I was transitioning, like when I hit my 30s, I was a different woman, right? I was just like a different. When I hit 30, like I cut off, I'm not my hair. Like I cut off my hair and I went blonde for a little bit. I was healing. I was feeling myself. I was like at the top tip shape for myself. And like, I had did a lot of work. So I had become a.
Oh, you muted. What happened?
Oh, we can't hear you, sis.
You don't have the mute thing up there, but I can't hear you.
Oh, she might have. Yeah, it happened earlier. She had to go out and go back in. Okay, yeah, we'll kind of bridge it until sis gets back. But yeah, kind of dovetail off what she was saying. It's so true. Like when you go. So when I got married, I was 21, and so the woman that I am, like 10 years later, is a totally different person. Like,
can I ask y'all real quick? How many versions of you has your husband been with? I'll be like, how many different wives, like you as yourself, like how many versions of you has your husband been with so far? Yeah.
Yeah.
We changed so much.
So I got married. So I met my husband when I was like 19 or 20. And mind you, at the time when I met him, I was like freshly graduated from college, like party girl, going out 4 or 5 days a week, like was just in the streets out there. And so from that time, and in between that, we've had 5 kids. So between that time and all the way, like 12 years, it's been a totally. So he's probably had like 5 or 6. It's been so many, different things. And then not to mention, sometimes when things happen to you in life, different situations happen to you, it causes you to like evolve, causes you, and sometimes just healing in itself. So, the woman that he met, and I have to say girl because I
She was
wasn't
a girl.
wasn't
Yeah.
there. I was a girl. It was like unhealed.
I was a woman with girl thoughts. Okay, I
But
was
yes,
Correct.
very. Yeah, I have to say like a girl, like, because I wasn't there. And I was, I was out there, like I said, and I'll keep saying it's like everybody had me fucked up. Like I was just, and that was my biggest toxic trait. And so, I was in the streets, I was partying all the time. And honestly, I think a part of that, like, element was attractive to my husband because like I was young, because and again, and I say that I'm honest with myself, I'm transparent. He was freshly like off of a divorce, like maybe 2 years or something. So I think a part of like the usefulness and
is
how
what
such a free
attracted him
spirit,
initially.
all of them, yeah, I think that was attracted to him. I think he didn't know
What all that entailed, right?
but what was a whole soul that was, a free spirit, but that wasn't like discipline, was none of those things. So I think the very thing, the stuff that attracted, my husband to me, and so and that's another reason I love my husband so much. I almost feel like we're soulmates because he was able to see past, the fact that I was really a whole fool of these streets. And so he's been able to see, and like I said, I think I know what attracted him, to me
Right. Right.
because of everything. So I get the part that attracted, but at the same time too, there was another piece of me that I don't think, of course, dating, it was my representative and, I was being real, how we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, we got together, he got to see, kind of all the rest of unhealed and everybody had me fucked, all that kind of stuff. But it was like he saw past and he knew, what healed me could look like and what I could become. Because sometimes I didn't even think on like, because at the time, so me and my husband, we've talked about this, we were like total, like polar opposites. Like I said, I was freshly graduated, literally going at every,
These streets
you
are
know,
cold.
every
Okay.
4 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I was like, I was out there. At the same time, too, I like had graduated from high school early, so I was like kind of getting thrown into. So we're in Houston, so it was like a situation. So I was like 19, graduating from college, like first generation college student. So I'm 19, like making like $50,000, and at the time, like that was like,
Yeah,
you
that's
come
big
from a
money
first
for a
generation girl
19-year-old.
for a
Yeah.
19-year-old, for a college student, fresh out of school. So it was up from there. And I was kind of like out of control. But like I said, I see the things, that maybe attracted him to. And so then, of course, as we got together, and so I
Holy
mentioned that
Spirit,
today,
Lord.
I was like big on this, I'm independent, I'm an independent woman. Like, of course, I want a man and this and that, but I don't need you like that. So I just had like a whole like
You
war.
was feeling yourself. You was
Complex.
feeling
You had a
yourself.
Yes.
little
It
complex.
was, it was like out of control. And so I appreciate my husband that he was able to see past, all those things. And
Mm-hmm.
that, we were able, and so he's seen, from 19, even after we had, our first child, I was 22. And at the time, and I was not ready to have kids. I was not ready to be a mother. Like, I really, like, literally wasn't. Oh, and I hate my kids. I hope you're upstairs. The first was like an accident. Like we weren't planning to, like how. So he was like getting deployed. He was in the military, so he wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
here when my first son was born. And so I definitely wasn't planning on,
That's
having a
rough.
child and having to take care of the child for 6 7 months by myself, like, and all of that good stuff. So that threw me into a whole nother phase of
Yeah,
like
because
womanhood.
postpartum is
And
real. And
yes, it was
woo,
just a
yeah,
whole, and now like the man, it's kind of like I really didn't even want this child. And now the man, the husband I had away is not even here. So I'm taking care of the
Salty.
child like
Just
for
salty.
7 to 8 months.
In the house.
Yeah, so that was a whole dynamic of womanhood, and then we had 4 or 5 more kids. So it is just things, kind of that happen through life, and then even your growth. And I started, being healed. And so, to my husband's perspective, some things were probably not as great for him because when I, healed and started doing some of the work, I didn't accept a lot of the stuff that I was accepting as a 19-year-old girl when you first met me. I might have
Right.
been down for, whatever, we can hang out and I'm letting stuff slide. I'm,
Mhm.
you texting other people, we doing our thing. We just having fun. And I may have been down for that at that time, but no, now, I'm a mother. We're married. We're establishing a family. I'm not down for that anymore. I'm growing. I'm healing. Like I'm not into that anymore. So I
Yeah.
think probably, from his perspectives, there were things that I know he's seen me grow, and I know he's seen a lot of things that I used to accept that I don't accept anymore. And I think sometimes, and I've seen this, thankfully, it hasn't happened too much in my marriage, but I've seen this with some of my friends. They were the party girl, they were allowing all type of stuff when they met the dude, and then as you grow, now y'all starting a family, y'all getting some, and the guy or the spouse, and I shouldn't just say guy because it could be men or women, is not growing at that same pace. And they still want to be about that party life, and they still want to be, you do you, I'ma do me, kind of that type of thing. So sometimes in relationships, like Sdot mentioned, if y'all are not growing together, it can create like an imbalance because you
I
still
was
on where we
I think
were 5, 10 years ago.
what I was
Oh.
getting towards was basically, you got something to say, black man? What?
Right here, and it's
I
30
see
What's
OG
so
minutes.
creepy
Tria
in
Oh,
had
that?
a
baby, this,
question
this is
too.
the ladies only zone. You can exit yourself.
Now, exit now, sir. Now, what
Right?
I was getting at, like
Explain yourself.
when you hit that milestone of change, like you hit your 30s and you're trying to like, grow, or you're going to your next level, because let's just be honest, individually you have your own things, and then you have your things together, and then you have your vision for the kids, like all of those things, all those facets made different. They can go against each other at times, but what I will say, like, I had to come to Jesus with my husband because I was at a place where what my 20s was doing is it's not giving what it's supposed to give in my
Not
30s. Like,
giving.
we
True.
can't, whatever that was, okay, not to say that that's obsolete now, but now I need you to step it up in a way too,
True.
like, and I can do it in a soft way and a kind way of, like, hey, this is what I like now. I know what I
You
liked in
see
the past,
the
so now I
question.
have to, like, not reprogram my husband, but I have to help him understand how I have transitioned in this space, and then give him time to make said adjustments to these changes, because I am always changing. I tell my husband, one thing about me, you gonna get a new woman probably every decade, for sure, for
Facts.
sure, for sure.
Right.
And
And if
my
you have some
husband,
kids now.
yeah, add some kids. So now, we have a 2-year-old, and like right now I have, like, and this is just being really transparent, like I don't always connect with my daughter that way, but he is excellent in this space right now. I know sometimes, like, women aren't, we get these things like we have to be nurturing, we have to be, like, right now my husband is being the nurturing body in this space of this phase of our life. And there's nothing wrong with me per se, but like, this might not be my age range, and I'm okay with it not being my age range at the moment. Like, we've had these discussions, and like, he's just better with dealing with her. And actually they close to the same birthdays, their personalities are just like, they are in tune with one another. It is beautiful. Let me say, it is beautiful watching him interact with her. Like, they just went on a daddy and daughter. Like, I feel like I'm breaking generational curses just with that interaction. Those things I get to see him walk into, having that closeness with my daughter. It's just beautiful. And sometimes I feel guilty as a mom because I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to, but
But
no,
I think that's an important point though, because you
yeah,
think about like how many of us are raised by single moms and we didn't have
yeah,
the dad for
True.
us to have that nurturing with.
right,
And so you see how so many of us, maybe our moms weren't like the most nurturing, and how like
right,
because we didn't have that other parent to thankfully give that to us, we like just had to grow up without maybe the nurture we should have been able to get from somebody, from one of the
Yeah.
yes.
parents. So I
My
think
mom
that's
wasn't.
beautiful.
My mom wasn't nurturing like
Yeah.
that. Now she would be like, "I didn't." I said, "Mama, you was not hugging on us like that.
My
Like,
mama
you was
either.
not doing that kind of stuff.
My
Yeah.
You
mom either. She
don't
told
even
us she
like to be
loved us one
touched."
time. because she
Yeah.
thought we were gonna die because we were getting on a plane for the first time. She told us she loved us, and we all were looking like we scared to get on the plane now because you talking about you
Right.
love us, we gonna die. You
Like,
know?
who is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just understanding the transitions. I'm getting a little heavier into my career or all of that. So that takes, like, my husband is very well established in his organization and stuff like that. So he doesn't have to do the things that I'm getting ready to have to do or the time I'm gonna. So like we really have to have good communication and understanding that, like, and him being okay with, now it's my time to like shine. Like, I'll put in the work. We both put in the work. We got this house. We got blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But now we have our own individual ministries that we're going to have to tend to. Like, and right now it's just my time. So, I love that I get to experience these things and I get to help heal my lineage on my side of seeing things, and I get to see him heal them some things, because just because you come from, my husband, like all the men I've actually ever dated have 2-parent homes, and that could be a hit or miss with 2-parent homes. Let's be honest. Just because you come from a 2-parent home don't make it better. Okay.
Yeah. Because some of those families are toxic.
Very, very much so.
And
So
people don't understand, an absent father or mother is just as bad as a toxic, and sometimes the toxic situation is worse.
A present parent causes
and toxic is just as bad, if not worse, than an absent, father. Yeah. People
or
don't
father
understand
that's
that.
there but not there.
Right.
Like, that's where his family is. Like, the dad was there, but like he might as well not be. Like, he just was just absent in body.
Yeah.
I mean, present in body, but absent in mind. He was just not there. So that's almost worse, because I see that dynamic tries to creep in every once in a while. Like, we're not doing that. Like, you're gonna have to be here. We need you to be present. You can't default to what you saw growing up, So that's also
you have
bad
to
too.
be. Yeah. Kind of on that same note, and I think it's gonna happen, and a man has to be secure enough, within himself. Like, kind of how you mentioned, like, now your career, and that's happened, to me and my husband like several times. There's been time where, he's making more money, or I'm making more money, he's more advanced in his career, and we just have to go with the ebbs and flows. And I'm thankful too, that my husband is the same way that he is. And I think sometimes, because I've had that too, sometimes we feel bad because we feel like women are supposed to be nurturers and that sort of thing. I have 5 kids, and there are times that I'm just not, my husband, like you mentioned, like, he's more of the nurturer. He gets up, he takes them to school. I'm not a morning person, so I'll get the clothes out at night and do all of that kind of stuff. But my husband is the one that gets up, gets them ready for school. He takes them to school. He gets the baby ready and take care of it. He does that stuff. And I'm thankful for him. And I've openly acknowledged him several times. I'm at this point, I'm kind of further in my career right now. And I openly acknowledge there's no way I could do anything I do or be anywhere that I am right now if it wasn't for my husband. And him doing all the things, that he does. There's no way I can do all of that. And, I know it's not, we talk about this too. As Black women, sometimes we put this heavy weight, and I think society has played a huge part in this too, but we put this heavy weight on ourselves that we have to be everything. And we have to be so.
I'm every woman. No, I'm not.
I struggle with this. I'm tired of being strong. My back hurt. Like, I need for us to say, like, I need help. I was just telling Sdot, like, I had let my housekeeper go. We had let our housekeeper go because we have our baby is like 7 months. He was born in May. Yeah, it's really killing me. I'm like, okay, I'm working from home. I'm like, I can do the housework. Like, it's fine. And so it was killing me. And a part of me almost felt like a failure or something. And I had to go. And again, I'm still growing. I'm still healing. We're all transparent. I deal with anxiety and depression really hard, mostly like anxiety. It's hereditary. It runs in my family. And so I think anxiety gets to me a whole lot. And I start feeling like, oh, it's chaotic. And I have to, like, you can clean this, you can do all the cleaning. And again, it's 5 small kids. You can do all the cleaning, you can work, you can do all these things. And my therapist said, it's okay to need help. You don't always have to be strong. Like you can, so I was telling Esther, baby, I called my housekeeper on Monday, like, can you come tomorrow? You think you can come tomorrow? She said,
And I mean, some people, some men, not men, but some
yes,
women, even some women.
and just it's just sometimes simple things. Just what that did for my mental space. Just having that help and having somebody to come and clean the house for me was so like helpful because my husband and I so he does, it's just different though. Men are not quite it, he does things in the way that he does them. He is very helpful with the kids, he cooks, he all those things. He does all those things. In terms of cleaning, men just don't necessarily clean the way that we do. So just kind of
Ooh, my husband
one
clean
piece
better than
right
me.
there. Yeah,
Oh, he
was
clean
so
better than you,
helpful,
Bree.
He borderline OCD. I'm like, but he's
Oh,
like
okay.
he has
Yeah,
neurotic tendencies, so he be saying,
yeah.
he's 6'3", so
He
he'll be
pick
like
up
the
the
top
lint
of the
off the floor.
refrigerator.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he'd
I
be like
have
the
a
top of the
cousin like
refrigerator
that. Oh,
dirty. I'm like, I'm 5'2". I can't see. He's just like, so, but he's just neurotic in that way. He likes it.
I think it's okay to ask for help. I think sometimes you got
Yeah.
to think about, like, even in biblical days, they had maids.
Yes.
They had help.
Yes. Yes.
Some of them weren't nursing their own child. So you add like a full-time job, you are breastfeeding on demand, you have a career, like you have all of these things that you have to attend to. And sometimes these are things you want to do, like you freely want to do those, but you need some relief. And it's
Yeah.
definitely okay. Like some people will, like I know Dwayne, he put his grandma on a pedestal.
Oh,
Okay,
he
she did it
does.
all. She did it all. And I'm like, I'm glad she could do it all, but I'm not gonna
That
do it all.
part. I ain't built
Yeah,
like that.
I'm not gonna
I ain't built like that.
The law of conservation of energy is something in nature. So you have to, I was just talking about that yesterday. Like I can't, when I was younger, I used to be on 10 all day, every day, and then crash and then be like a 0 for 3 months. And then I was just like, I got kids, I have a husband, I have stuff I have to do. So I might not be able to be a 10 every day, but I'm gonna be a solid 7 or 8 every day. I might
Yeah.
just have to be a solid 7 or 8, but I can maintain that forever. But I can't be on 10 every day. And I
get
tell
get
my
your
kids that.
housekeepers. Okay,
Hmm.
go
Yes.
get
You
your
have to.
housekeepers. Get somebody to prepare the meals. Like any
Yes.
way that you can create a self-care. Like there was this viral video about a woman who, like, she had a night doula that came into her home and like dealt with her child from 8 p.m. all the way to 6 a.m. so she could get some rest. Let me tell you how I'm gonna hire that woman if I have
Yes.
enough, because sleep, you're not any good to anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself. So if you're not
Yeah.
doing any self-care, and it's more than just like bubble baths, but hell, that is a start. But like, like
Right.
just that time to recalibrate, like Bree was saying, like, so you can be good for other people. But if you're not
Yeah.
treating like some people will like put everything on you, and you're supposed to maintain this level of excellency. If you're a Virgo, maybe you can do that. Okay. Like, I'm just playing. I'm just
You're a
like,
Virgo.
but if you are, if you are a person who's very stringent like that, that's for somebody, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Don't ever get to a space where you don't give your wife, even if you're a stay at home. I think one of the individuals in the chat was at Real Talk with, and she's a stay at
Mhm.
home mother. And that is one of the hardest jobs. It does not
It is.
get enough credit. Okay. It is
I'm a
$100,000
stay-at-home
job.
mom now.
And
Okay.
not to
So
mention it's thankless. You don't get paid. Not to mention all those things.
yeah. So it's such a big old
Yeah.
piece into how that marriage works and all that kind of stuff. It is so integral, that portion of what a stay-at-home mom does, a home manager. Okay. All of that stuff. You are everything, and you don't get them.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't
Sure
get
don't.
You
Yeah.
don't
You
get
don't
two
get
15-minute
paid.
breaks. You don't get an hour lunch. Like you don't. You might get the nap
Before
time.
I had one time I threw a little tantrum because I'm stay-at-home mom. So one day I threw a little tantrum. And I decided I was gonna dress like Cinderella because I said, y'all got me. Y'all think I'm Cinderella around here? Like,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
because I'm
good.
stay at home mom. So I really walked around in the house all day in a Cinderella dress, and my husband was like, "You doing the most?" But I was like, "Look, I just want y'all to see this how I'm feeling right now. I just need to have, we practice respectful parenting in our household, which is a different
I'm
new
here
form of
for it.
parenting. You don't beat them, you talk to them. So part of that is me being honest about who I am and how I'm feeling and
Yeah.
modeling how we handle our emotions. And
Yeah.
my husband is way better than me. I'm still working on it because sometimes, you know. But so that's part of why I did it, because I have to model like, okay, I am feeling this way,
Right.
and let me be honest about my feelings and not
Yeah.
handle it in a toxic way. My kids got a kick out of it because I have a 12-year-old, 8-year-old, and 4-year-old, or
Oh,
almost 4-year-old. So
Mm.
yeah, they got a kick out of it, seeing me walk around in my Cinderella dress. But I
and
think it made the point.
I salute you. I take my hat off because that is a hard job. And it's so
Mhm.
like, and I don't think it gets enough credit like at all. And I'll be honest, I am not, I couldn't. I tried it, I think after our second or third child, well, I took like an extended leave from work and I tried to do it for like 4 or 5 months and I couldn't. It's a lot of work and people
Hats
don't
off.
it's
Hats
a
off. I
very,
love
yeah.
it.
So hats off to you. Definitely salute to you because, and I salute all
All of
some of
the
the ladies in
staff.
the chat were saying that they're a stay-at-home mom. Salute to you guys because it's a really hard, and people don't understand that it's like a thankless job. You're not getting, and I don't think enough appreciation, goes
It's
into,
easy to lose yourself. I think it's important as a
yeah,
stay-at-home mom to
yeah,
like that you have to like really know who you are and like feed
yes.
your identity, which is a lot. Like, I know I be in these chats and talking on panels, but this is part of like how, and I stay in the country, like we have a
Oh,
homestead,
that's
so we
good.
have like chickens, we got animals. So
Oh,
I'm not in the city, so this is how I get social interaction, but it's important for
yeah.
me because I used to work. I was a nurse. I worked full like 12-hour shifts, you
Wow.
know. And so
That's a
this is
whole
how
nother
it's
life
Salute
important
to
for
you.
me.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you have to, I would just say, a
Oh,
stay-at-home mom, you cannot become your kids and you cannot become the housework. You have to make sure you have an identity and you feed your identity and you know your purpose.
that's
Yes.
so good. And
What are the
we
ways
salute
that
to
you
you.
guys
You found your purpose, and even though you doing your thing, and I love that. It's so
what is
good.
the ways that you guys, I know Kaylin mentioned in there about self-care, like yes, affirmations. I use all of those things that Kaylin has put in there. Meditation, affirmations, mental, physically, exercise is another one that is very helpful. I'm out of commission right now, but we getting back in. But like that's so good and so important. Also, like, what are other ways that you guys do self-care practices? And what else could you share
Mm,
with the chat and everybody else? What are some
I'm a
ways?
creative, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm a chaotic creative. So really, like I draw, I game. My daughter draws, so we connect in that way. So just making sure I have a way to get art out in whatever form
Mm-hmm.
is how my self-care for me. It's really not about the stuff like what I do to myself, but it's like I have to breed creativity. I have to bird things. Like I still have to be creative. And I think sometimes like I know sometimes like baby fever would hit me, but I've learned over time that it's really sometimes I'm not birthing anything like
Mm-hmm.
creatively, like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of times if I'm staying, like for me that's the ultimate self-care, just like drawing, putting stuff out there, like whatever I need to do to just make sure I'm doing that. So for me that's like the ultimate self-care. And also since I live on a homestead, like farm, gardening, anytime I go outside, and it's just like gardening is great. That's a good form of self care. It grounds us, and like teaching my daughters, how to connect with the earth and stuff like that. We all
Yes, with
had
my
That
COVID, so
is
crystal.
we
so
Okay,
yeah,
anyway.
we
dope.
all had COVID, so we would go outside with our shoes off and say we were giving it back to the earth, to neutralize, the sickness and stuff
Wow.
like that. And my girls, I mean, it's just great seeing them outside, like chasing chickens, and just like it really connects you to the earth. Really,
That
it's
is
great.
so
So
I
dope.
love that. That's
Like the
beautiful, Mama.
gardening, all of that. That is so dope.
What
Man.
about you, Mama? What do you do to
For me, like honestly, legit, and this might sound like just being able to lay in the bed. And I love reality
Thank you,
TV.
queso.
And I'm like, man, that is like straight up my retirement. Like, cause I would love to garden and like go see, like, man, it's so dope to me. But I get to garden sometimes, not a whole lot, not as much as I would like to. But for me, like lately, it's been just laying in the bed and being able to like relax. My life is just crazy. Like I said, we have five kids together, and then I have three bonus kids, and they're all boys. Our last one was finally a girl, so it's my life is just always crazy. I work a full-time job, like in management, that I work like 50, 60 hours a week, and so it's just crazy. So for me, being able to like sleep in or just lay in the bed, I like reality TV, and I don't care what Black Man on Filter say. I love it. And I watch all the reality shows. I watch all of it. Love and hip hop, all the real house. I watch all of it. It ain't got no
Yeah,
bearing
all
on my
garbage.
life or nothing like that. It's entertainment, so I watch it. So that's my thing. And like I said, I like to watch that. I like to do that. I do, and I'm glad, and I'm very thankful, and this has been really therapeutic for me. I have a cooking show that I do. I'm not as consistent as I should be, but I've been able to get back into that. And so that's really therapeutic for me. I really like to cook. I like to cook. I like to bake. I like to make new dishes. I like to cook for people. To me, and that's one thing I loved, like about like growing up and about my heritage. Like I'm Creole, like Cajun, and like food is love. And so that's one thing that we were taught. And so I just love that. And I love to cook, and I like to show other people how to cook. So I do have like a platform. Like I said,
You
I really
vacation,
look.
mother. You
Yeah, where that
vacation.
platform at? Because I hate cooking. I mean, I
Yeah,
can cook, but it just kills a part of my soul. I really hate it. Cook
it's
with
a
pork.
shameless plug too, but we're actually going to be integrating. So we were going to do like some of the tutorials today, and so I really like doing that. And so it's called Cooking with Mother and her kids. And so I've been able to connect with my kids, and so I love that I've been able to connect with my kids, but especially like with my bonus kids, because sometimes, and I know we're going to talk about this like a little bit later, like blended families, sometimes it's difficult to connect with like bonus kids. Some people call them. So when I say that, if you guys are like step kids, so like children, that my husband had in his previous marriage. So I don't like the word step. I say bonus.
Same.
But sometimes it's difficult to make those connections. So it's been so good because me and my 13-year-old bonus have been able to connect over that. So like now he takes my tutorials. And like honestly, I could tape them myself, but I saw how into it he was. And so I'm like, oh yes, like this is a bonding moment. And so now like he's all over it. And
I love it.
if you guys have ever seen any of like my videos on my platform, like he tapes the videos and he's the whole time like shout out to the cameraman. And so like he's really so hyped up about it. And so that's been like a whole bonding thing, like for us. And now that's something that we're, able to bond over. So, that's something that I'm passionate about and something I love to do, like kind of in my downtime. And I really would like to get more consistent with it. It's been helpful. That I think that was helpful for me too, because it was nice to be able to do something like almost for myself, something
Right.
that I like to do. I mean, I work and career wise, all that good stuff is very demanding and it's a lot, but I don't feel like, yes, I do something that I'm passionate about with diversity and human resource, all that good stuff. But to me, professionally, that's on a different arena too. If I
Yeah.
could have my dream job, it would be cooking and like teaching people how to cook. So I feel like, with that platform, I've been able to like, kind of have something for myself. And I
Right.
feel like, I'm away from everything when I can take, and I have the music going and I have my wine and like all that good stuff. And so for me, it's like a whole vibe. And I feel like, okay, like this is my time. And so my husband doesn't like, he used to would like try to get, and I think he realized like subconsciously, like, okay, this is for her. Like, this is what she likes to do. Like, so he doesn't get involved. He literally, and I'm thankful that he's understanding in that way. Like, sometimes if the kids are not helping me or if they're not interacting in the video, he will take the kids, and make sure that they're out of my hair and everything so that I can just kind of, like do me. And so I found like that's really therapeutic. So that's probably like the two things. Lately, it's been just kind of laying up watching reality TV, but I really would like to get more consistent, with being on my platform and, doing the cooking tutorials and that sort of thing, because that's been really therapeutic for me. And I don't know, it just makes me feel it's like real zen, And like I said, it just feels like I'm doing something for me and I'm taking some time for
That
me.
creative, that
Yeah,
creative energy is
I think that's
being
what it is. I think that's what
channeled.
it is. Yes, yeah.
I think one of the things that I do, well, actually, I'm a plus model on the side, like that's my creative space. I really enjoy that. But my other thing is, so I started this new thing. I'm so excited about it. But I started like for 2022, I wanted to get like more organized. Like that's one of my top things. And I think sometimes we can like procrastinate our greatness when we don't have things in order. So like that's my thing. Like I'm headed towards greatness. What will it take to be great at the end of the day? So one of my self-care method is to create space in my schedule so that I can like relax, so I can, do the things that I want to do, like because I'm a
It's
procrastinator.
important.
I will procrastinate my life away, and then I'll like do this whole list, and I'm exhausted, and like I'm like, why are you tired? Because you waited, sis. Like you waited all the way till Friday, the deadline, or I used to in college, I would be writing one hell of a paper
All night.
an hour or two before it's due.
Girl,
So
that
like
was me.
I'm really trying to I'm trying to unlearn the procrastination, whatever. So one of my self-care things is to get organized, because I feel like that's a part of my self-care. If I can get a little bit more free time, or if I can schedule my day a little bit better, I can be a better person to myself and other people, and just all the different things. Like I am not a fashionista by any means, but I like to wear, if you're a stylist and stuff, like I love to wear. I can wear the heck out of something
It
that somebody,
can. It can. And be wearing them down.
Okay.
And be
so
wearing them down, honey.
yes, so I love that. So that like, and just know that even if you don't get it right, because I try other stuff, and so this is new for 2022. It could change 6 months from now, but I'm giving it 90 days to like really fully develop that. I'm in a new career. I just got a new career like last year, December. I started a new job, and so like that has its demands. I still consider myself a new mother, even though she's 2, because she's just 2. Like 2 years is that's like saying, you are an expert
first 3
2 years in
years.
marriage.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
no, you're not. No, you're not. So I feel like I'll be a little bit better when she hit 5 or something, like, so it's okay. I think one of the other things, I love bubble baths. I love massages. And I like looking within. Like I do a lot of self-work. Brianna, she in the tweeds and in the bushes and the grass and like all of that. I enjoy that too. Like I love that. I'm a earthy kind of woman in that sense. I love my business, but that quiet time, that moment for journaling. I think someone mentioned that. I love journal. I do like to cook too, but it's become a task. So like to give myself a break, I will get some help. Some help. If you're the main person cooking at home, find a little chef or something and prepare some meals for you, give you a couple of weeks off so that you can
I wish.
See, I'll get it cooking. I just need somebody to clean up the kitchen. See, you gotta find what it is that you need.
Yeah, because that's a plus for him. Like the first time we had, because that's a luxury. First of all, somebody cleaning your house is a luxury these days. And I want to make it a norm, so that's what we headed to. But my thing is like when the first person like cleaned our home, like we were giddy like kids, because it's like, oh my gosh, man. I'm used to listening to Anita, Whitney Houston, and them on Saturday morning. We doing Saturday cleaning. Right. And so when my husband, he was still in that mindset. And I was like, boo, I am grown now. You will not tell me to get up and clean up on a
That
Saturday
part.
morning. Like I am this is PTSD. Like I was really against that. Like for a while. I'm like, I am not. No. Catch me on Sunday night. I just as a
Yeah.
I would clean up at night. Like I was a night cleaner, so I could do all
Yeah,
that
I
stuff.
clean
He
at
liked to clean
night.
up in the
Yeah.
daytime. So like, anyway.
Because
So
when you have kids too, what? Well, I'm gonna clean up in the morning, and then she gonna come in here and
You're gonna
tear
mess
up.
it
I
up.
clean at night.
Yes.
you
That
Right.
is
like to
true.
sleep at
I clean at
night.
night.
And
And then
I
you
had
like
to
the
start
candle at
equating
the
like,
end.
yeah, my brother always says this too. You either gonna spend time or you gonna spend money. And it's true. And so I had to equate, this is time I'm taking away from my kids. This time I'm taking away from my family. Life already crazy. I don't have a whole bunch of time. Like some things we have to be willing to, I think you just have to figure out like what's most important. And so
Hmm.
when I was able to kind of, because again, my anxiety was like killing me, and to the fact of like, okay, and like I said, I think as black, we subconsciously put all this weight on ourselves. And I'm like, no, you need to be able to clean like you can clean the house, you can do, you're working from home, like, oh, you got more time, you can do all these things, but we can't, you
Can
can't
you?
kill yourself. You're right, exactly. And like,
Is that realistic for today?
being
You know,
strong. We have to get to that. And so it was the way that I don't know that my brother said it to me. He said, you're either gonna spend time or money. And so when you think about that, like I'm like, okay, is this worth,
let's
when I
spend
can
some
pay
money.
somebody to come and do these things, that precious time, like away from my kids. And like you
And
said,
guess what?
for you, whether that's a chef, whether it's a housekeeper, whatever it is you need.
And when you like, just keep in mind, like we used to have like slight arguments. Imagine having the resources to have someone come into your home. Now that's a discussion. Now that's an argument that's been eliminated, essentially.
Right.
You know what I'm
True.
saying? Like for today, like somebody came in and cleaned the house. That's not even something y'all got to bicker about. Now
That
you
part.
created that's an alternative way, because some people feel
Yeah.
like you at home, you need to. No, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to find
That
out
part.
what works best for us and our
Yeah.
unit and how we're going about things. Yeah. So, and just maximizing our time together. Like me and my husband do marriage retreats and stuff like that,
Yeah.
so that's another way that we connect. No kids, just us, because I think
Yeah.
you can lose the identity of your marriage and
Yes.
when kids come. So you can lose your sense of self as a woman, and then layered on top of that, you might lose your connection with one another. Or like that first year where you're like, I was breastfeeding my first year, so my husband felt like, like, what am I to do? I don't know what to do. I feel helpless. I feel like I can't help him. Like, yes, Brittany, definitely looking to
Yeah.
outsource more in 2020.
You have to.
Absolutely. Okay.
Mhm.
But that first year, they're just there. They don't even know how they come about. K Soul is getting ready to have a baby. What I will
Right.
say, get her as much help as you
As you
can.
can.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that helps you too, because as a man, although you're not going through, all of those things, you are there as a support, you're there as a helpmate, and that like that role kind of, you want to be present, you want to be a part of it. But like I said, like right now, my 2-year-old is glued to her daddy. Okay, like glued, like
Mhm.
mini me
Like it's
shadow.
his
That's
year.
what's going
His
on
Yeah.
year.
right now.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, shoot, while y'all doing that, I'm gonna do this, because now like there's this peace and understanding that we're not losing each other, we're coming together, but now it's really his time to bond. He may feel a certain way when becomes like a teenager, and she's going through
Yeah.
all
Then
these
that might be
worldly
your
things,
time. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's like,
It'll
ooh,
it'll shift when she's like
Yeah.
5
It's
between, because
sure.
she'll want to be more like you. She'll start wanting
yeah,
to be model you.
yeah.
So then she'll
When
be more
she's sick or
interested in what
hungry,
you
that's
got.
when I
Yeah.
come
And
back
it's something
crazy.
about girls, and I love that so much. I guess because I didn't really have it. So so we have 7 boys, and then the last one was finally a girl. So
Ooh,
Ooh, girl.
it's a
who needs
different dynamic. And it was new to me, but I loved it. So again, I have never been Yes, I have kids. I love my kids. I've never been though like the nurturer and the parent that's always. I've always been work driven, and that's just me. I had a baby, so I take maternity leave 6 weeks, and I'm back to work. And that's just
Mm,
me. That's my person. That's how I operate.
girl,
And
that's
so my
society. I'm mad at it. Okay, give us a
yeah,
year.
Yeah, that's
that's, that's just
society.
with me. That's just how I am. Like I said, I tried to do the leave and tried to do the stay at home, and it just wasn't for me. And I think part of my anxiety and depression kind of played into that. So
Hmm.
it's just best for me. I have to like work, and so it's been different though for me to see the dynamic because he always always has been more of like the nurturer, but for me to see the dynamic with him with my daughter. And like it's so beautiful. So like she's 7 months and kind of the same thing, she's already like so close to, it's my husband that's really like doing all those things for her and like she's so close with her. And like I
Shout
say,
out to
he's
the husbands.
for the boys, but
Yes,
Like
it's
girls
shout
love
out to
girls
our
love their
husbands
daddies.
because they're
I
awesome and
love
yes,
girls
wonderful.
love
I
daddies.
love that. Yeah, girl dad is like a real
Yeah,
thing, and I had
It
never
is.
experienced
I
that. And so sometimes
yeah
it makes me emotional a little bit, like when I see my daughter. I guess because I didn't have that, and even though she's only 6 months, it makes me a little emotional because kind of that bond that they already have, and you can just
yeah
tell like the way that like she feels
Yeah.
by the way she grabs his face and like all that kind of stuff. You
Girl, it's
can
the
just
cutest thing
tell.
ever. It's so cute. Okay,
It
it's so, so,
it's
so,
really is.
so
cute.
cute. Like,
Cause I
I'm
have
like,
three girls, and they
I,
just yeah,
Oh,
they all just my husband's 6'3", and they'll literally like one
like
on
he a
one
tree.
side, the 12-year-old, then they be climbing. He 8, and the 2-year-old, I mean 3-year-old, she on his head. They just it's all him.
It's
He come in,
beautiful.
I'm invisible, and I love it.
And I
oh,
think like one of the things that I like struggle with before, and this is some self work I had to do, was like wondering, I could be a little selfish with my husband because I likes him. Okay, I likes him a lot. And so like I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen these crazy dynamics that were kind of unbalanced, and you have to like I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, what if having a baby would change our dynamic? Or what if he shows her more love than me? Like I really had these fears before that's one of the things that kind of slowed me down, like I'm like, I don't know if I want to have kids because I like all the attention
Right.
on me. Like I like
She said,
this.
"Baby girls be stealing husbands." Yes, they
They
do.
do. They really do be stealing husbands, but it's really all that stuff just kind of like just went away after I had her, and I could just see her little body and his big old arms, and just like it's just so great
yeah,
to see that insecurity of mine like just no longer exists because he's still taking care of home, he's still taking care of me, and he's still taking care of her. Like I I respect him so much because of his consistency. Like he's consistent
Oh
and
yeah.
I can trust him. And so those are the things, like I respect him because he is consistent, and
yeah,
because I can trust him, and because he always puts the family at the forefront. So just kudos to my man. My
right.
man, I just want to give
And
you a
that
hand
answered
clap
OG
because
Patrice.
yeah, she did ask
She
that
asked
question
that
earlier.
earlier. When did you
Yeah.
respect? And I was thinking, like, that's one thing I always say. I don't care what my husband does. I know he loves his girls, and he'll never do anything to hurt me or them intentionally. And I
Yeah,
think that was one of the reasons, like, I knew I would marry him because I was like, I'm a miss, honey. He might be a miss, but that man loves his kids, and
yeah.
he would put them first. And like, if I'm the mother of his children, that means that
He's
he
gonna
gonna
put,
love me
yeah,
too.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And,
so
and
that's
even
one
when
thing
we
I can
talk.
always say about my husband.
Yeah, good fun. That's actually what attracted me. Even at the time, with all my craziness and everything that I had going on, I think that was what attracted me to my husband. The way that he took care of, because at the time when I met my husband, I think my bonus kids were maybe like, um,
What,
they were
two,
young. I've
three?
been around them forever. Maybe like three. Like I
Yeah.
think three,
Mm.
5, and like 8 or 9 or something like that. And now they're not, the oldest one is 21. But at the time, and it was just, it was like amazing to me because again, my dad wasn't there like that to see this man with his kids. And like a man taking care of like 3 kids, like by him, like now he didn't have them full time, but he would get them religiously, like every weekend. And no matter what, was going on with the ex-wife and divorce or any of that, he was getting his kids. And so I think that was like so attractive to me. And it was so, and again, because coming from where kind of the environment I came from, it was so nice to see like a man that was so adamant, about being in his kid's life and not just, even just a weekend dad or nothing like that. Like, even though, him and, their mother, like, him and the ex-wife, bro, he was so adamant and so intentional about being in his kid's life and doing everything that he could, to make sure that his kids had the best childhood. And that was just so attractive to me. And I
Yeah.
think that was one of the things. And even in my craziness, I could recognize that. And even though I still had a lot of healing to do. I could recognize that that was something that I wanted in a husband, and that was something that I would want for like
Yes.
I would not have kids with a man, that had
And
those
I and I
characteristics.
do want to say my husband wasn't always financially in a good spot. Like when we were
Mm-hmm.
younger, like he was like struggling, finding his place in the world, what he wanted to do, and how he can make money. And so, but he and I just like, even though he couldn't always pay for them, because there was a time we were together when my oldest was born, and we broke up. And I have a bonus. I have 3 kids, but one of those is a bonus baby. She's in the middle, so everybody's always like, "Where's she come? How did that happen?"
Mm-hmm.
So we broke up
Mind
for a
your
time when
business.
I was
Right?
younger because we both needed to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but even when he couldn't financially take care of my now oldest, he still loved her. Like
Mm-hmm.
he still took care of her in the other ways that matter. And I think that was important for me to see, because my dad had money. And even though my parents weren't together, he always gave us money. So at first I always felt like, if you don't have money to take care of your kids, then I was that person like, you ain't paying, you ain't giving me no money. What use do I have for you? But seeing like how close they were, and I never kept them apart, because first of all, my mama would have drugged me in the streets if I would did that.
Right.
But he just still loved, and just for me to see that there's more ways for him to love her than just financially
Financially.
providing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was important, and for me to see that, I mean, that basically was a big part of why I was like, all right, I'm sorry, I was tripping. Can you can we be together again? I just really respect him, and like, we don't have those problems anymore. But it was important for me to see that. And
Awesome.
yeah, that's
What
why I
is this,
respect him.
black man? Ladies, question. What do you say to the fathers who are trying to be better fathers and husbands who didn't have the influence of men and they failed at it? Um, I would say
You say
that
two fathers.
you have to give space for redemption. Like,
True.
we can go through lots of things. I would say give yourself grace, and you know, there's always space for redemption if your intentions are in the right place of making things right.
Yeah.
I think you can always come back. I know some certain circumstances where, you got these split homes, and or you together, or you just have so much trauma, because kids feel things, and we have to get out of the notion that kids don't feel things, that they don't understand, or that they're too young. Yes, we're going to protect them, but they feel things. They know things are changing or transition. They can feel tension, and you don't want to make tension a part of their everyday life where it's normalized, that tension. So I would just say that keep trying, keep doing, and
Yeah.
keep putting your best foot
Mhm.
forward, um, and heal as much as you can as an individual, so that people can see your actions, that can see who you are. Because sometimes, say you're doing all your healing, but you don't have no actions behind all of this stuff that you're doing. So you have to like show yourself who you really are, and be present, and go over for a little bit. You might have to do some extra work.
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't want to do the extra work, or you got some parents that are like absent out of your life, and then they feel like they shouldn't be putting the extra step to make those connections and all that stuff or whatever. But And also it goes both ways in a way because I wasn't raised with my father at all. I'm glad I wasn't at the end of the day because he probably would have been a mess and a half. But what I will say, as I got older, I gave grace to him. One of the things I didn't experience is my mom bashing him. Like she never bashed him. He wasn't there. So there wasn't too much to bash or to, back in the day, you got your grandma and them, you got your whole tribe. Girl, forget him. We'll help you take care of the kids or whatever. And it could have been that kind of dynamic. And, but she never said anything bad about him that would prevent once I found my dad for one. I put in the work. He did not find me. I found him. I was seeking to heal that part of myself and was able to find him before he passed away. But we were able to heal and fix things and work on, and that took healing for me. I had to heal in order for him to be received, because you're gonna atone for those sins in one way or the other. But I'm grateful that he's been open. At the time, he was very open, and that we could heal. And that's part of the things that I could see what kind of relationship we would have had he been in my life and he had been sober and all those things. Like I got to see a glint of that, but I'm so glad I get to see it with my daughter and my husband, because I get to see what a healthy dynamic can look like. And I get to witness that. Like I get to live that every day. It's a part of my reality that it's not just a fantasy. Cause I see women, girls with their dads, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That would be nice. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that those healthy dynamics existed. So, yeah, you're right, girl. Tamika, it is her husband right now. my daughter got her. Okay. My daughter got him wrapped. But yeah, I would just say that, continue to be, if you're a good father, it will show, and the kids will know at the end of the day. They'll know.
And with that too, get yourself a tribe, because I think we don't put enough emphasis on men need tribes too. The same way that we tell women,
Yes.
find your tribe, sis, get the people
Good
that
one.
men need tribes too. So surround yourself. It's people, the right kind of men to be around. You see men that's taking care of your kid, and that did wonders for my husband. Because my husband had the same scenario. He never grew up around, his real dad was like addicted to drugs, addicted to crack. Praise God, he's now like 10 years sober, but he was literally addicted to drugs, to crack, for like 30 years. And so he was never around, for my husband and for his siblings, like growing up. And so he had just never seen, I think he said, his grandpa was like the only example, but he kind of caught like the tail end of, his grandpa like passed away early. So he only saw, he was very young when he saw, that dynamic. And that was the only glimpse of like a healthy relationship, like fatherly relationship that he saw. So he had kind of that same thing, but he did the work and he surrounded himself with men, even like Black Men Unfiltered, like Sdot's husband. Yeah, he surrounded himself with men that are taking care of their children and that are doing the work to be good fathers, even though they didn't have a good example. So I think we underrate it sometimes. We tell the women all the time, oh sis, find your tribe, that kind of thing is so important to have your sister circle. It's important for men too. Like you need to have a tribe. And so even though you might not have those familial examples from your family, you can seek out men that you see that are doing those things, and don't be
Same
proud.
values.
Yeah, say, hey, brother, like, how are you? How do you maintain? Don't be too proud to share I think sometimes men kind of lack that vulnerability. Don't be too proud to share your situation and say, hey, man, I got this going on. Get other people's opinion, because what you'll see, you might see families now that's healed, and that sort of thing. You never know. That man might have been in that same situation that you got going on right now. And I know that's what happened, with my husband. We, met Black Man Unfiltered. We met Scott's husband, and two or three other couples, that we hang, and come to find out, we were seeing them, and we only saw them as couples. But come to find out, they had blended families. They had been through a lot of the exact same things. I always said, God puts us where we need to be. And he puts us around the people that we need to be around. Because it was literally by chance. We met all these people like on a cruise. And, 7, 8 years later, we built like a whole body. So now that's my husband's tribe. And God put those men in his life. He put those men in his life because he knew he didn't have examples. And he put these men in his life. And so my husband has found his tribe. And I attribute that. I say this all the time. I attribute that to the man that my husband is now. And for the growth that he's had with having these experiences, because men, it's important for men too. The same way we need these sister circles, the same way we need to be able to vent, we need to have perspectives. Men need that too. And they're
Yes.
not forthcoming and saying those things, but they need it. And so that's been really helpful to my husband. And so if you don't have any examples and that sort of thing, seek out, get you a tribe. And
Yeah.
like Sdot said, sometimes you might have to eat it for a little bit. You might. If you haven't been there, you have to come in with a teachable heart. You have to come in with a willing heart,
Ability
you
too.
know, and be open. Yes, you the one. I'm sorry, you fucked up. No matter what your circumstances are, a child never deserves, no matter what was happening or never was happening, the only person that suffered was the child. And so, regardless of what the situation was, in the eyes of the child, you're the one that fucked up. You should have been there. So you're gonna have to eat it for a little bit, and you might have to go above and beyond for a while. But like as I said, if your intentions are pure, it's gonna prove itself. But I think that's the biggest advice I could give. Find you a tribe. Get you a tribe. Get with people that you aspire. If you see men out there that's taking care of their kids, you aspire. That's what you want to be. You want to be in your kids' life. Get with those men and talk to those men.
Yeah. You have anything to add to that, Bree, when it comes to a man trying to.
I agree. But I also would say just connect, like to me, connect with your inner child. Because I think sometimes if you have trauma from your past one, sometimes you have kids, it could just like trigger you and you can kind of
Mhm.
like just kind of shut down in some ways. But also just think about what you wanted, like from your absent parent. Like, did you really care? Was it just about the money? Was it about them just being there, or what did you want from them that they couldn't give you because they weren't there? And just start from there. Just try to be, because I think a lot of times kids just want love. They just want to hug you. They just want to hear you say, I love you. I'm proud of you. Notice what they're doing, see what they're doing. And so you can always start there. Like, what do you feel like you missed from
Your child.
not
Yeah. Mhm.
philosophically, what do you emotionally feel like you've missed from your father not being there that you would have wanted to have as a child, not as an adult looking back, as a child, and just kind of try to give your kids that.
Yeah.
That's what I
I
would say.
mean, Tamika was saying like how do you connect to your inner child? Counseling is a good way, but you can go in within
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You can journal. You can do hypnosis. You can do a lot of different little things. You can I would say meditation too. I like to write. I like to meditate. How do you connect with your inner child? You literally have to go really deep within and be intentional about bringing stuff
Mm-hmm.
forward and speaking those things out and screaming those things out, like whatever it was to put yourself in that mindset is like remembering. Yes, hypnosis. um
Or
um
yeah, sometimes it's still that voice is still there. I mean, even with
yeah.
my
Yeah.
children, sometimes we learn like how to cope when we're children. So like one thing I think I saw this on a Yonla or something, but I do this to my kids, and sometimes I do it to myself because sometimes you have feelings and you're ashamed of them, or you don't want to admit that you have these feelings because I'm a grown. Why am I still like pissed off because my daddy didn't come to that one recital or whatever it is you hold on to? So sometimes I know what I do, or I have my kids do, is sometimes I can see the emotion coming up and I can see on their face that it's coming up. And I'll be like, touch your chest, touch your heart, close your eyes, and listen to
Yes.
that little voice inside and just
Yeah.
say what you want to say. Because I can
Come
see
on,
on their
gentle
face that they're trying
parenting.
to
Yes.
Yes.
they're trying to like my 12-year-old, she's really anxious and
I
she's
love
trying to
that.
like filter filter what she's gonna say to me, and I can already see the emotion coming out. So a lot of times I'll be like, breathe, just put your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and let that voice from there tell you what's wrong with you. And so that helps a lot too. I had to do that to myself, and I'm 34,
That is
so
so
that helps
good.
a lot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hypnosis is like suggestion. It's like your subconscious mind. We're getting real deep. Anyway, it's fine. But anyway, this is I love this
Yeah,
kind of
we are.
stuff. But anyway,
Right.
like you can do suggestive programming to bring out
Yeah.
certain emotions that you may have buried, either
Mhm.
for for protection, because sometimes we block certain things in our subconscious mind, and it plays out in our conscious behavior from our day
Mhm.
to day. Like,
Yeah.
like if you don't heal your inner child, you literally end up dealing with it in the present with who you're with. It comes
Yeah.
out,
Right.
or you'll start attracting, you know, the problematic child in you. Like
Yeah.
it's very energetic. So I would just say,
Mhm.
like, one of the things that I did besides counseling was hypnosis, was about negativity, like blockages. You can find stuff on YouTube, like just little suggestive things, or weight loss, anything you want to find is probably on YouTube. But as far as the inner child, like journaling, I know I dealt with abandonment issues, not even just abandonment with my dad, but abandonment with my mom, because as a single parent working all the time and having to be all of these things, there are certain places where she just wasn't present in. So I had to like give grace in certain spaces for her, and knowing that she just had to she was dealing, and so she was in a survival mode for most of
Mhm.
her life. And so now, I'm at a place where I've done a lot of healing, I've done a lot of work, it's ongoing. Um, you can, when you get to that space, like you can make space for, the suggestions to come back to you. Like you don't, it's kind of hard to explain, but I will say, like, if you sit with
I
yourself,
would say too, a
yeah,
lot of a lot of the stuff that triggers you in everyday life is kind of a hint.
Yeah. It
Oftentimes,
is.
so sometimes
I
if you know your triggers, just think about why does that trigger you. Sometimes it'll go back to something from your
Yeah.
childhood. So a lot of
I was
times you
gonna
can just
say
follow
that.
the
Yes.
path.
like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you're
Hmm.
meditating, some people think that you're like trying to clear your mind. Sometimes you're meditating on why. Like, say you're in a moment and you've gotten triggered, somebody pissed your ass off really
Yeah.
fast. And sometimes you need to dissect, like, why am I, like Brie said, why am I feeling like this? Why did this trigger me? What is my true emotion? Is it a lie? Is it real? Like, is it something, like you dissect that thing? I did that one time and I fell asleep, woke up, felt way lighter. Okay. Like, because I had exerted all the energy behind it, but I didn't let it linger. I just dealt
Yeah.
with it. And then
Yeah.
I could move on. And like,
Mhm.
oh, that wasn't even real today. Like, that wasn't even a real thing today. That was just
Yeah.
a moment. Yeah.
Well,
So,
distorted thoughts, and that's something I picked up from counseling. Distorted thoughts is a real thing. And I have it so bad. And people that, if you deal with anxiety and depression, it distorted thoughts is a big thing. I'll create a whole goddamn story in my head. I literally will, just from one or two scenarios. And so I had to watch that. And that was a big part that played into how toxic I was and how everybody had me fucked up. Because if I had one interaction with you and it wasn't right, now it created a whole story about how you have all these bad intentions towards me, like, and all that good stuff. And it was because though, so when I was transparent and honest with myself, I grew up around that. My mom always had she could come up with these stories about just from one interaction. Oh, they must have been talking about me. Oh, that's what it was always. So when I
like
really
something
said,
learned,
yeah,
environmental.
I
Yeah.
learned it was kind of learned behavior. And so when you start like getting ready to work on your inner child, you have to brace yourself and be, just know that you might, discover a lot of things that your mom was teaching you, that your parents was teaching you that might not have been right. And you might discover that a lot of the things that you thought were normal as a child were toxic. So just brace yourself when you get ready
Mm-hmm.
to, go through some of those things with your inner child. Brace yourself that you might discover and you might figure out a lot of them toxic traits you have came from, your childhood and the things that you saw growing up. And maybe mama wasn't everything. And I say this to say, we never, and especially in the Black community, it's sad to say we will bash the daddy. We will go in on the daddy for not being right. But sometimes mama ain't right neither. But we have this kind of delicate, like nobody want to talk about the mama. Like, oh, we can't say that.
No,
Like
I
I
talked about
always,
it.
my
I
mom
talked
was
about
an
it.
amazing provider. But and like all of us, my mom was not perfect. And there were a lot of toxic traits that I learned from my mother. So just know that when you get into, trying to heal from your inner child and trying to heal from, brace yourself that you probably are going to figure out that a lot of things that you learn, growing up might not have been right. And that might be a lot of where you learned a lot of those toxic behaviors. And now you need to heal, but you have to be ready to know and to accept that all the things you learned growing up, or maybe the way that your family does things, it might be toxic. You might have a
Get
toxic
ready. Yeah.
family. You got to be willing to accept it. And you have to know that when you get ready to break some of those generational curses, that it might be the people that started those generational curses that are not going to support you. Like, you just have to know that.
Nope.
A lot of times people are not courageous enough. So when you come trying to break generational curses, they feel like they feel like, oh, you started something with the family. You caused the confusion in the family. And this, that, and the third. So I just want to tell people, I think it's important for all of us to heal from your inner child. Just brace yourself and be ready. Because when you go breaking generational curses, a lot of times it's the people started them damn generational curses that don't support you and that try to talk you down out
And,
of it. And it's because they haven't healed and they haven't done the healing for themselves.
What'd you say,
I'm
Bree?
sorry, go ahead.
have y'all seen Encanto, the
Oh my
Disney movie?
gosh, the grandmother. I
That's
was
what
screaming.
Encanto. That's what Encanto's about. Y'all should watch that. That's
Yes,
what
the
it's about. It's
matriarch
about generational.
could be.
Yep. And we don't talk about
Wow.
we don't talk about trauma. You need to watch that
Yes,
movie because it's
I
about
need to watch
generational
it.
it's
trauma.
so
He
good. I
started talking
watched it
about how
like
good the music was on it.
trip, trip,
And the
trip.
music
Okay,
was
sorry.
hit.
You talking about the
Yeah,
music.
Talking
see,
through it.
shameless
Okay,
plug.
we don't talk about Bruno. Like it's a good
I
movie.
started a
Yeah.
YouTube channel, and we're talking about Encanto and generational trauma on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
Shameless plug.
awesome. Okay, we have to come on through.
Yep.
I just
Need to
started.
get into it. I'm gonna watch it
Yes.
today.
I will say another thing. If you are a woman of faith, one of my prayers, now just get ready for it. One of the prayers, whoever you believe with, asking your God, because I'm not going to limit you to whoever you believe, but
Sure.
ask them to show them yourself. Like, show me and show me who I can be. And get ready when you say that. When you get ready to say, show me and who I can be, get ready to do the work behind what it takes
Yeah.
to become the you. It is not pretty. Okay. Self-care ain't pretty. Okay. Self-care ain't pretty. It ain't all of that. Okay. Healing is not pretty. Unlearning things is not comfortable because like everybody around you may be doing one thing and you're getting ready to elevate to the next level. So that calls for a different you to resurface or, to evolve or whatever. I would just say when you say those things, be intentional and be understanding, like do your best effort to protect yourself in those moments because it does open you up to seeing. I know some people don't like to say this, but it's shadow work, child. It's shadow work is dealing, is trying
It's
to
shadow work.
find. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
just, we got a lot of state folks
Dark
on
night of
here.
the soul, shadow work, whatever you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
call it.
So whatever you want to just dealing, because there's some once you recognize those darker parts of your personality or where they come from, you can use those for the light. You can use those for good. You can use those for your benefit if you know how to, if you have a thing where you pop off, right? Mother got a thing about herself where she can pop off, but now she could use that power on a positive light. Like there's some crooks, right, in the world. Like they just crooks. Okay. They don't, they scammy, but there are ways for you to use even your scammy and make it better. Like you
Right?
can use that because what if you know how to do paperwork very well, or you know how to whatever, you know how to
Right?
finesse very well.
How to do that? Get you a
You
job,
can
save the
use
company money.
yeah, you can use those negative things that are deemed negative It's about like how you're utilizing that energy, and to make yourself better when you want to do better. So I'll just say that and leave it at that. Is there anything else anybody would like to add? We're about to close it on out. And it's just been a pleasure to be on this platform today. And I hope you guys got something out of it. Make sure that you are subscribing and, liking the page. And, we just want to cheers to Black Men Unfiltered for giving us space to be able
Yeah.
to speak our truth and not have to deal with all the testosterone that comes with
That
us
part.
and using our voices. Okay. So it's always a pleasure, Bree. Always a pleasure, Muva. Anything else?
Always. And I have to say, what really like warmed me today is seeing like all the women, all the involvement, everything that was here. When Estelle came on here, I'm a real thug, but a tear almost came down when she was, like asking and just saying so that, because I always say that's why I'm so transparent, and I'm not concerned about business or not. It's no business when we come here. We all family. And so I don't mind being transparent. If anything we talk about is a testimony to anybody and can help anybody, we're doing what we're supposed to do. And so I loved all the interaction today. And I'm so glad you came on, Brianna. And I hope more ladies will hop on. If I see the men in the chat, Philip, shout out to you, Simon, K-Soul, all of y'all, like y'all been holding it down. And so I just appreciate all of the support. And I'm happy that as Black people, as Black women, we here and we can have this discussion and talk about mental health and all these things that have been so touchy within our community. So all of that, it's just, my heart is like smiling so big right now. And I'm just happy. And like you said, shout out to Black Men Unfiltered, even though you be working my damn nerves sometimes. Thanks to you, for providing this platform for us to be able to do this.
Bree?
I just want to say I enjoyed the conversation. I was listening earlier. I was with my mom. We were going to the store, but I enjoyed listening to this, and it was great. And I look forward to the next ones. And Mother, I want to. What's your? You have a cooking YouTube channel? You got old videos on there?
I do.
I want to know.
I got a YouTube channel, so I would like to go on YouTube. So I'm so old school. So I used to like a Facebook page, and I do lives on it.
Mm-hmm.
I really should like do a YouTube channel, and so I've been working with Black Men Unfiltered. So we were thinking of combining it with this platform, but me and Sdot were talking.
Okay.
We might end up doing like some kind of meal platform type things. But it's called
Mm-hmm.
Cooking with Mother and Her Kids. So if anybody wants to look it up or
Cooking
interested,
with Mother and Her Kids.
yeah,
I'm gonna look it up, girl.
Yeah,
I'm trying to go on there today. That's
yes, shout it out. But we're going to be doing so. Me and Esai, and anybody, all the ladies here, and ladies or gentlemen, are welcome to join. We're going to flush it out, but we'll probably be doing like some weekday type things, maybe like some meal prep type tutorials. So y'all look out for that. That'll be coming here soon.
All right. We just wanted to go ahead and close it out. And we just appreciate you guys for winding down with us, and hope that you'll be back next time. So you guys take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.